Adani Wilmar.
A multi-billion-dollar company, Adani Wilmar Limited is a joint venture between the Adani Group of India and Wilmar International of Singapore. What drives Adani Wilmar is its vision to be a globally admired leader in integrated agribusiness with a deep commitment to nation building. It aims to be known for its scale of ambition, speed of execution and quality of operation. Honoring its promise to give India the best foods, Adani Wilmar Limited has a range of food products under the famous brands. It has also given India its #1 edible oil brand, Fortune. The commissioning of India's very first port-based refinery at Mundra, Gujarat, was the stepping stone in Adani Wilmar's success story. The availability of cutting-edge infrastructure and its proximity to consumer markets made it a good choice to bridge the logistical gap between plants. Today, the unit also houses India's largest oleochemical plants that produces glycerine and soap noodles for pharma, cosmetics and rubber industries.
Who know that one of India's largest food companies is always thinking big and doing better. I'm confident that Adani Wilmar is ready to take new challenges, is steadily bringing innovation in food products and growing to transform the food industry in India. Thank you, Adani Wilmar, for a healthy, growing India.
Castor. For most, a seed which grows into a castor plant. For us, a seed which grows into saplings of thoughts, to a plant of sustainability, to the branches of opportunity, to the fruits of innovation, to nurture an industry. The giant agro group has proved that when nourished with ideas, a castor seed can grow into a giant industry. An industry that can develop the needs of the future. An industry that can expand its arms to reach diverse sectors across the globe. This is India, the global market leader in production and supply of castor seed and castor oil. The NK Proteins Group of Company is a strong and emerging front-runner in the manufacturing and export of castor oil and its derivatives like hydrogenated castor oil, 12-hydroxystearic acid and ricinoleic acid. Our production plant is located at Kadi in Mehsana district of Gujarat state, which has the world's highest castor seed yield in kilograms per hectare. Our corporate headquarters is located in Ahmedabad, one of the country's most vibrant and important cities. With more than 2 decades of industry experience under our belt, we serve our customers around the world with high-quality products at competitive prices and prompt deliveries. Spread over an area of around 1 lakh square meters, our infrastructure boasts of 6 massive silos, 12 seed crushers for extraction of oil, oil decanters, vertical continuous solvent extraction plant, energy efficient hydrogenous plant, and an in-house quality control department with most advanced equipments like GLC and Carl Fisher. And our vision is to be the most competitive, reliable and preferred supplier of the full basket of castor oil and its derivatives around the globe.
This is Hengshui Jinghua Chemical Company Limited of China. We are devoted to the research and development of the bio-based materials to provide the world with green, eco-friendly, high-performance materials. We're one of the most important consumers in the world. We convert nearly 100,000 metric tons of castor oil by advanced technology to the product which is widely used in all aspects of our life. Welcome to Hengshui Jinghua Chemical Company Limited.
A very warm welcome to all of you to the Global Castor Conference 2020, organized by the Solvent Extractors Association of India. I am Harshil Kamdar, and it is my privilege to anchor the event for this August audience. Thank you, SEA, for this opportunity. We are glad to inform you that more than 600 participants from over 25 countries have registered for this conference. We would like to thank our speakers, panelists, for sparing their valuable time and gracing the event with their presence. We look forward to their insightful views and intriguing discussions. We would like to express our gratitude to our dear patrons. Without their support, we would not have been able to pull off this event. A big thank you to our title patron, Adani Wilmar Limited. Special thanks to our platinum patrons, Giant Agro Organics Limited, NK Proteins Private Limited, Gokul Agro Resources Limited, Haixia Jinghua Chemicals Company Limited, China, and Gokul Overseas. Special thanks to our general patrons, Royal Castor Products Limited, Castor Girnar Industries Private Limited, NCDEX, RCA Laboratories, Geocam, Jux Castor Products Private Limited, and the International Castor Oil Association, also known as ICOA. A special mention of our media associates, thank you Oil World, Commodity World, and RK Single. I would now like to invite Mr. Atul Chaturvedi, the President of the Solvent Extractors Association of India, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you very much. And first and foremost, let us excuse ourselves for this technical glitch. And I hope the delegates wouldn't mind this minor glitch we had. And I'm sure it has bothered quite a few. Thank you. Thank you for being patient with us. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all my friends and dignitaries, depending on the time zone you are currently in. We are meeting after almost a year, and during this period, the world has changed dramatically due to Corona. I'm sure the tough phase we have all gone through has made us more resilient, and by and large, we have weathered this storm and come out largely unscathed. It gives me great pleasure to reconnect, albeit virtually, with old friends after almost a year. We welcome all the delegates in today's 19th Global Castor Conference webinar being hosted by C. We take this opportunity to warmly welcome Dr. Ashok Dalwai, the CEO of National Rain-Fed Area Authority of India in the Ministry of Agriculture and the Farmers' Welfare, who has graciously consented to share his views and experience in his keynote address on Indian agriculture scenario. Dr. Dalwai has been at the forefront of the campaign of realizing our Prime Minister's vision of doubling farmers' income by 2022. Let me add here that probably agriculture is one sector which is doing fantastically well, and I would not be too surprised if we are able to cross the 4% growth this year. So kudos to all the efforts of the Ministry of Agriculture. We welcome and look forward to hear the views on Castor Market Dynamics from Mr. Andrew Pollack, Mr. Wang, Ms. Vivian Patel, Mr. Rabah, Shailesh Baldha, and Thomas Milkey, and the distinguished panelists on the price outlook. I extend a very warm welcome to each and every distinguished speaker and participant from across the globe. The conference has grown in stature year after year. During the last few months, we have lost some very dear friends and pillars of our industry. Please join me in paying homage to Mr. Tevon Tantiponganant, Chairman of Thai Castor Oil Industries, Thailand, a very prominent figure in the castor world, who would now be no more in our midst. And so also Mr. Bipin Patel, the past president of C, who actually initiated the Global Castor Conference 19 years back. So we will be missing them. And we also lost a very dear friend, Mr. Dinesh Patel from NK Industries, who passed away a few months back. I am told that we have also lost another doyen of the castor industry in the formative years of the castor industry, Dr. Bipin Shah from Hindustan Levers. He was one of the earliest buyers of castor oil from Hindustan Levers. They have also left us. During the calendar year 2020, India's castor oil exports have shown remarkable resurgence and reached a record figure of about 650,000 tons compared to about 545,000 tons in the previous year. It's a whopping number. This is a commendable achievement and shows the strength of our industry that even COVID-19 could not slow us down. Dalwai Sahab, we are glad to inform you that as compared to other oil seeds, the yield of castor seeds in the country is much higher. Sustained efforts by the agri-scientists in successfully developing a large number of hybrid varieties which can give much higher yield per hectare have actually borne fruit. However, insufficient knowledge of good agricultural practices, the average yield still continues to be relatively lower. In view of this, in our association in 2019 launched C Castor Yield Development Project. With successful implementation in the last 4 years in raising the productivity, this year the project was expanded and we have created nearly 500 model farms across the states of Gujarat and Rajasthan. C provided these farmers good quality seeds, fertilizers and pesticides, and also monitored these farms through highly experienced scientists and motivators who continuously guided them on good agronomic practices. Castor farmers were shown these model farms to show how showcase how productivity can be raised. I am pleased to inform that nearly 25,000 farmers are connected through the model farms. We are happy to mention that against the average productivity of 17 or 1.7 to 1.8 tons per hectare in these model farms, the productivity is much higher at about 5 to 7 tons per hectare. So this is a whopping change which we are seeing wherever we have intervened in this crop. And coupled with intercropping with groundnut, this is actually giving huge income boost to the farmers in Gujarat and Rajasthan. As a matter of fact, we are actually showcasing to the farmers that doubling their income need not be through prices alone, but by improving productivity as well. I would specially congratulate the progressive farmers involved in Castor Model Farm Project.
Hello.
Am I audible, no?
Yes,
We would like to compliment Mr. Haresh Vyas, project in charge and co-chairman C Castor Seed and Oil Promotion Council, Dr. B.V. Mehta, our ever green and young ED, and Shri Bhavinsh Chatrala, MD of Castor Girnar Industries, for their excellent work in coordination with Sardar Krishinagar Dantiwala Agricultural University. Scientists and farmers for this project, and particularly would like to congratulate and thank Shri Chirag Bhua and his team for their active contribution and coordination with the farmers. Further, to objectively assess the results of the model castor farms, we have appointed an independent auditor, which is Mart Global Management Solutions, LLP, New Delhi. There used to be some doubts whether the numbers which we were giving were right or not. So that is why we said we might as well go in for a third-party audit to actually confirm whether the numbers being touted around by our farms are right or not. At this point, I take this opportunity to thank members who have extended financial support for this project and hope we will continue in future as well, because this is now proving to be a game changer. And according to what reports we are getting, in spite of a lower acreage this year, the yields might actually rebound big time, and some contribution would be from sea as well, apart from good monsoon rains. The association has, since the year 2018, started Shri Vitthal Das Ji Udeshi Castor Innovation Awards in memory of one of the stalwarts of our castor industry, and we will be presenting 4 cash awards and certificates to castor seed progressive farmers for consistent high productivity in castor seed through good agronomic practices. They have demonstrated that the productivity can increase 3 to 4 times from the current level. We congratulate all of them for their exemplary work in their respective area. As usual, Indian Agribusiness Systems Limited, popularly known as AgriWatch, has on behalf of the association conducted castor crop survey for the current upcoming castor crop in India. The crop estimates will be presented later during the day. We compliment them for the same. Friends, we have been talking about increasing value-added derivative exports year after year. Some improvement we have seen, but it's still a long way to go. We urge the industry to look at this opportunity, which is waiting to be exploited. We look forward to an interesting next couple of hours ahead and to learn from the industry veterans and industry experts from all over the world. Thank you very much, and sorry once again for the initial technical glitch, which did not allow many of our delegates to join in. Sorry for the trouble. Thank you. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chaturvedi. I would now like to invite Mr. Abhay Udeshi, the chairman of Castor Council, to deliver the opening remarks. Over to you, Mr. Udeshi.
Thank you. Dr. Ashok Dalwai, IAS, Chief Executive Officer, Government of India. Shri Atul Chaturvedi ji, Haresh Vyas ji, dear friends and respected dignitaries, I heartily welcome to the 19th Global Castor Conference. This August gathering includes prominent personalities of the castor industry from across the globe. The annual conference has its special place amongst the various castor fraternity, providing the right platform to exchange information and knowledge on this vital product, castor oil. Unfortunately, the world has changed and we are all meeting virtually, which has been the new reality, but hopefully we shall meet in person at the next conference. I am saddened about the passing away of our dear friend, Mr. Tevon, who has been an integral part of this event since inception. We will always miss him. On behalf of C, I have conveyed our deep condolences to the family and may God give his eternal soul to rest in peace. I am pleased to see his successor, Mr. Achava Paul, prominently known as Om, to be present today and share his knowledge and views at this August gathering. We also missed when Atul Bhai was saying about the people that we are not going to see henceforth. I would like to mention that I miss my uncle, Vaman Bhai Udeshi, who also happened to pass in this year. And, he was also given the Lifetime Achievement Award. I also recollect the days when Mr. B.R. Shah of Hindustan Liver started using castor oil in, for manufacturing of soap. And that was primarily because of the low prices that castor oil had in the late 70s and 80s, when all edible oil prices were ruling very high. It is the same situation today. When we are looking at the castor oil prices, castor oil is still at the very low end of the price band, and I'm sure that India, with its entrepreneurial knowledges and with the applications that one can find, we will see good support in the consumption in the domestic market. Castor oil has a history of taking its participants on a roller coaster ride, surprising and shocking them. This time, however, the castor seeds and oil prices were range-bound. The shock took the world by storm, as it has been one of its kind in a century as a global pandemic. I can recollect last year, we had the event without our Chinese delegates and participants. We wish them a speedy recovery, hoping to see them this year. Though China managed to control the pandemic, the world could not. Governments across the world reacted differently to the crisis, from a total lockdown in India to a very different policy followed by Sweden. Similarly, there was a different approach to protect the economy. While USA responded by sending money in the bank accounts of their citizens, India chose to provide food to the poor and protect life. However, the resolution to protect the people and the economy has been strong. This resulted in a demand for castor oil growing at about 15% during the pandemic year, to the contrary of what was expected, with the highest growth recorded by China. This is commendable, especially in the light of the negative growth in the world GDP. In the current year, the castor oil exports for the year 2020 were at over 650,000 tons against 545,000 tons in the previous year. Indian farmers have once again proved their reliability. They have been instrumental in promoting the growth of the castor oil industry. It is hard to imagine that India reached the 1 million tons of production milestone for castor seeds just a little over a decade ago. That is in 2009-10. The credit goes to the agricultural scientists who have been developing better, high-yielding, disease-resistant varieties suited to our climate regularly. GCH8 variety of hybrid seeds developed by the Sardar Datewada Agricultural University has produced commendable results. This is an important development as we are ready with a new improved variety before the older variety has become widely susceptible to any diseases or pests. It is developments like these which give confidence to the worldwide castor oil users for making new investments in the industry. The credit goes to various organizations who have been supporting the farmers by making this good quality sowing seeds available and educating them for adapting suitable farming techniques. The productivity and now the water conservation program of C is one such program. More details of the program will be shared during our today's webinar. We must applaud the efforts of the C team members and must continue to financially support this program. In this challenging year, the crop estimates by AgriWatch will be of a particular interest. The carry forward of the crop and the crop estimates, though considered as a known factor, is known to have been proven as an unknown factor on several occasions. Considerable effort has been put to improve the reliability and the accuracy of the crop numbers. Verification of the acreage by counter-checking the government acreage numbers with satellite images as an added tool since the past 3 years is one such step. Survey questionnaire has been sharpened. However, our efforts will be considered successful only when the projected numbers accuracy is consistent and vindicated by the facts at the end of the year. This always has been one of the big challenges which all of us are trying to address in a more scientific and a logical way. This year too, in a bid to recognize and encourage our farmers, we will be honoring the farmers by bestowing the Sri Vithaldas Ji Udeshi Innovation Award to the most productive farmers. As in the past, at least one of the awardees will be a woman farmer. Despite the change in the format, I expect this year's conference, as always, will be informative and the discussions and deliberations will be thought-provoking with useful takeovers by all the participants. I remain confident that by next year, the pandemic would have been controlled and we will meet in person in the heart of the castor seed growing world in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, with renewed optimism and soaring expectations. Thank you for your patient hearing. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mr. Udeshi. Thank you very much. I would now like to invite our special guest, Dr. Ashok Dalwai, is the CEO of National Rainfed Area Authority, NRAA, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. We are honored to have Dr. Dalwai with us. We request Dr. Dalwai to deliver the keynote speech on the topic Indian agriculture scenario. Over to you, Mr. Dalwai.
Thank you very much. My dear friends Atul ji and Mr. Udeshi, all the respected participants from across the world. We are now used to meeting virtually, and in a way it has become much more comfortable and much more realistic. What began tentatively last year, meeting on online platforms, has now become real. So it would be a little odd to say it's virtual. It's become as real as any email or WhatsApp or any other social media platforms. Thank you very much. And you have made me a permanent member of your association, Atul ji, Solvent Extractors Association of India. I have been privileged to be attending your conferences year after year. Unfortunately, last year, thanks to Corona, I wasn't able to make it, but I didn't want to miss it this time. And let me wish everybody, though we are in the second month of the new year, a very happy and blessed new year. Let's all look forward to an year that will see a new pivot of transformation of the world economy and the world agriculture. The point that I would like to make today, for the next 15 minutes that I've been given, is to emphasize that agriculture, which has been the past, is now set to become the present and the future. So there's no advantage or there's no gainsaying that we should now leave out the Western economic model, where we believe that the share of agriculture in the nation's economy will keep declining. The percentage of people engaged in agriculture will decline. And these two would be the key performance indicators to show the maturity of the economy. But given the context of climate change, driven by the industrialization of the world over the last 2.5 centuries, based on extraction and use of fossil resources and fossil fuels, there has been accelerated change in the climate to the disadvantage of the humanity on Earth. And all of us are now fighting, based on our commitment at the Paris Agreement, that we shall try to check the rise in temperature 2.5% by the 21st century end. How successful are we going to be? We're not sure, but I guess we need to make more seasoned efforts towards achieving this particular goal. And one of the ways to mitigate is also adapt. Now, mitigation means that we need to try and see how to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. And adaptation means that in the short term, all of us try to accommodate the changing temperature, humidity, and rainfall patterns and negotiate the weather extremes, particularly in tropical climates like that of India and Africa. In this context, if we would like to mitigate, we need to reduce the use of fossil resources and the fossil fuel, and shift to use of renewable forms of materials. And there's renewable forms of feedstock for the industry and the manufacturing sector is going to come from agriculture and the forestry. Agriculture and forestry are two sectors which constitute the primary economic domain, and they are biological in nature in terms of production. There is continuity. We produce raw material, we use it as a feedstock, we grow and we keep growing and using. That is a circular economy. So agriculture in the world is set to become the fulcrum of the new economic domain that will drive the industrial sector, the manufacturing sector. And that advantage comes from two things: biotechnology and bioprocessing. The new biotechnology is going to offer us new opportunities of increasing the yields in different agricultural commodities. And bioprocessing is going to give us an opportunity of converting the biologically generated raw materials into different kinds of produce which can be used by mankind. And that will consist of biomaterials, it will consist of bioenzymes, and it will consist of biofuels. And that is going to give the agriculture of the world, and particularly for those economies like that of India and Africa, a new opportunity to expand the markets, the functional nature of market, and thereby find new demand for the agriculture. With new demands, we'll have new price bands. And that's what the farmers are looking for. So in India today, we recognize the importance of bioeconomy, and therefore we have a bioeconomy policy. And that has got generated on the back of the realization that while India has done tremendously well in terms of growth rates in agriculture, it has not done commensurately well in terms of welfare for the farmers. Since 1962-63, when we started rolling out the Green Revolution technology, India became food secure. Then it started diversifying, and today we are food surplus in certain segments, and we are generating 1.3 billion tons of agriculture commodities. While the growth rate has been robust, but the income growth rate for the farmers has not been as good. And with our commitment to WTO, where we have agreed to a certain percentage of cap on the subsidies to be transferred to the farmers, the only way to find support for the farmers is markets. That we need to create an open, liberalized, competitive market such that farmers are able to realize transparent and objectively and competitively discovered prices on their agricultural commodities. Hence, the way forward today that India has adopted is that we liberalize the agriculture market structure and now bring greater emphasis on post-harvest management, while the biological scientists within the National Agriculture Research System will focus on giving us new varieties which are drought resilient, climate resilient, which are what are called total factor productivity efficient, which also give us high yields. But that particular success is going to generate more surpluses and going to dip the markets. So the only answer is to create a competitive market where there's continuous increase of demand for the commodities. And so we have now recognized two ways of doing that and creating new demands. One is to strengthen our agri-logistics in terms of storage and transportation with respect to both perishables and non-perishables, and link effectively the farm gates to the markets. And the markets need not be in the near range. We necessarily have to link up with the far range markets, that means across the geography of India. And that calls for what is called a seamless transition of agricultural commodities from one end of the country to another end of the country. Therefore, the regulatory and control measures that we had for over the last 5 decades have now been liberalized, so that we create what is called a one nation, one market. And then the farmer would be able to transport his commodities to identify where there's a demand and then meet that, because you'll find a better price there. If he tries to offload his commodities in a place where there's no demand, obviously he's not going to get the price that he desires. So one of the basic principles of creating one nation, one market is to enable the farmer to sell what he wants, when he wants, where he wants. And this, you may call it as the free and fair market as envisioned by Adam Smith, the father of economics in the 18th century. At the same time, as we facilitate this open market, we are also aware that Adam Smith very clearly said, if we want the invisible hand of the free market to operate efficiently, all the stakeholders must be entertained by what is called a level playing field. So in the agriculture market environment, farmer, who is an important stakeholder along with the trader, processor, exporter, we realize that farmer with poor financial ability, with poor rates of saving, is a weaker of the parties. Hence, he needs to be given a better access to institutional credit so that he doesn't have to distress sell his commodities. So one of the new avenues that the government has created today is what is called electronic national warehousing receipt system, so that the farmer is able to store his commodities in an authorized warehouse and access the institutional credit at a concessional rate of interest. And when he has that, he is able to, what is that called as, evade the glut in the market immediately after the harvest and sell after 2 or 3 months when the markets are likely to be more buoyant. So the short point is that we need to give him institutional credit at the production stage, which has been the norm for the last 5 decades. But a new norm is to offer him post-harvest loans at a concessional rate of interest, so that he is able to strengthen himself and become an equal partner, equal stakeholder vis-a-vis the private sector, the corporate world. So the point that I would like all our global participants here to take home is that in India today, the focus is on post-harvest management. The focus is on creating a free and open market, supported by, of course, strengthening the farmers, and simultaneously to provide an environment for every stakeholder, including the corporates, through what is called as strengthened agri-logistics. For the first time, we have now realized the importance of agri-logistics, first in conveying the surpluses from the production zone to the consumption zone, and simultaneously to reduce the loss through decomposition All of you are aware that any agriculture commodity is a living organism even after it is harvested. And we therefore need to store it and transport it in proper ambience. We therefore need controlled atmospheric conditions. We, for example, need reefer vans to transport our perishables like fruits or vegetables, or we need chilled environment to transport our milk. So now we have created a corpus fund worth 100,000 crore, which means it is more nearly $12 billion. So that is a huge amount of money that we invested in the next 4 years to strengthen agri-logistics in India. In addition to this, we're also going to creating a corpus fund for nearly $6 billion for strengthening agri-logistics in the world of animal husbandry, dairy, and food processing industry. So all these things are going to be the new belt for connecting the farm gate to the new markets. While this territorial expansion will ensure that there is one nation, one market, we are also aware that India, with its huge area of 141 million hectares, with diverse agroclimatic conditions, with diverse soil systems, we are capable of producing and meeting the demand of different commodities across the globe. So India is now keen to produce not just for itself, but also produce for other countries wherever there's a demand. Hence, the export policy is the next focus. We already come out with an agri-export policy in 2018, but government is now working on further improved export policy, and that will see a lot of liberalization on all duty structure, on ease of doing business, on plant quarantine systems, harmonized standards, so that we are able to meet different standards for different commodities in different continents. So when we have this kind of agri-export policy, what happens is that territorially and functionally further we have gone beyond the domestic market boundaries. But more importantly, friends, just as India is trying to improve its production, every country is trying to do it. I don't think so we should be looking at ourselves in isolated compartmental manner. So the only way for us is when every country is improving upon its production systems, we need to find new markets within our own country also. And that is where what you stressed about castor as an oil seed, a non-edible oil seed, but more importantly, derivatives. When you talk of derivatives and go up the value chain, what you are essentially talking about is to find functional markets for the same castor oil. So this particular principle that you have talked about through this very efficient and robust Solvent Extractors Association is needed to be replicated in all agriculture commodities. We are therefore aware that every agriculture commodity, whether it is within the crop segment, or it is within the plantation, or within the animal husbandry sector, or the fishery sector, we need now to see how we can produce the raw materials that will meet the feedstock requirement of the industries. To give an example, which the Union Budget 2021 has talked about, to illustrate how Indian economy, agriculture economy is changing, that now we are going to set up an seaweed, a multi-purpose seaweed park in Tamil Nadu. Seaweed is a very simple, unseen kind of a creature, not a creature, it's a species. Imagine with 8,114 kilometers of coastline, I think I'll come to a close now. With 8,114 kilometers of coastline, India is not able to produce the seaweed that it requires to produce the agar requirement. We are importing from Sweden and other European countries which hardly have any coastlines. Now, the meaning is we need to shift focus our agriculture from crop centricity to other diverse agriculture commodities and also find value chain propositions. Therefore, now we are talking about setting up a multi-purpose seaweed park, which will ensure that we are going to go up the value chain and process more and more sophisticated commodities. So likewise, every single sector, subsector within agriculture will see a new domain. So friends, let me end up by saying today's agriculture scene in India is not just production centric. It is not food secure centric. Our aim is to produce something that will ensure the nutrition security of 1.32 billion population. Our aim is to generate raw materials for the industrial sector, for the fuel sector, energy sector, and make our agriculture sustainable even as it generates employment and incomes for our farmers. We are aware that with the new technology, including artificial intelligence, sensors, and other kinds of emerging technology, the industry is not going to absorb all the labor that is there surplus in agriculture today, as was possible in 19th century or as was possible in 20th century. So all the old economic models, including the development model of Arthur Lewis, who said that continuously industry will be able to absorb the surplus labor, is all falling by the wayside today in 21st century. So India is very, very much aware that we need to generate productive employment within the agriculture sector. We need to generate incomes for our farmers. But even as we do it, we would like to adopt new technologies, very much aware of the catastrophic effect of the climate change. So the Indian agriculture is undergoing a basic foundational change. And during this process of change, there will be disruption. And therefore, there will be resistance, because many a time the cozy comfort of many stakeholders will be disturbed. So the change management is what is very important. And we hope to do that change management as efficiently and as effectively as possible. So finally, let me congratulate you for having organized this, overcoming the challenge of Corona. And then the themes I've seen for the technical sessions are extremely appropriate, and castor being a hardy crop and already occupies nearly 4% of the area and oils in our country and nearly 6% of the production in our country. We are looking forward to increased output of oil seeds through productivity rise, increase in area, and better processing including under the primary and the secondary sectors. So I hope that over a period of time, the oil seed mission that India has adopted today to ensure that our imports, which are now as high as 15 million tons, will reduce slowly and steadily to at least 10 million tons by 2025, to 5 million tons by 2030, and by 2034-35 to zero imports. So it's a long way, and we need technology from you people from across the world, and we need support from one another. And I must congratulate the Solvent Extractors Association, which is actually leading to create a new opinion, a new environment, and also creating opinions for policy changes and new program design. So thank you very much, and all the best to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those wonderful words, Dr. Dalwai. I must share with the delegates here that Mr. Dalwai has been at the forefront of all the agricultural reforms which you've been listening to. And obviously, he talked about the change management as well. And I'm sure agriculture is now back in the focus. And over the next couple of years, you will keep hearing India changing and changing big time as far as agriculture is concerned. So we are in safe hands, and thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Dalwai, for those wonderful words, and especially the wonderful words about Solvent Extractors Association as well. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dalwai, for that insightful address. Before we move on to the next session of the event, we would like to offer our gratitude to our dear patrons. We would like to play a very small video of our patrons. Thank you. Thank you, dear patrons, for your continued patronage. SEA truly appreciates your support. Now, moving on to the next section of the event. This session, the country-wise Castor Market Dynamics, is power-packed with data and statistics by experts from major producing and importing countries across the globe. May I call upon Mr. Abhay Udeshi, Chairman of the Sea Castor Council, to invite our esteemed speakers and to lead the discussions. Over to you, Mr. Udeshi.
Thank you, Ashok. So we have distinguished speakers from across the globe. We have the privilege of their thoughts and views on the market dynamics in their respective geography. Now, let me introduce our experts. So first from USA, we have Mr. Andrew Pollack. He's the castor derivative specialist at Alnor Oil Company, and I would like him to start his first presentation in this session. Andrew.
Thank you, Abhay, for your introduction. Thank you for letting me speak today in the dynamics of the U.S. market as it pertains to castor oil. It's an honor and privilege to be here amongst all these distinguished guests. As you guys know, just like anywhere else in the world, the economy is the main driver for castor oil demand. From personal care, lubricants, greases, coatings, inks, textiles, surfactants, rubber, etc., plastics, everything. It all has a very profound effect on improving the lives of Americans, and I thank the castor industry for that. You know, as for all of us, our world faces new challenges as not seen in our lifetime. Politics in the U.S. has formed vastly different strategies and opinions on how to face these challenges and to get our economies back on track. Speaking of politics, if any of you people follow American politics, Atul, I just wanted to say that if you can, please say hi to Ted Cruz for us. Probably only a few of you will get that, but I move on. So what I want to do today is take a brief look at the U.S. economy, because again, it affects the castor market and the challenges we're facing. The economy has created a number of challenges that we have not seen before. And so let's see where we've been and where we're going. Next, please. Okay. All right. So the U.S. economy in Q4 did expand the gross national product by about 4%, slowing down from a record 33% in Q3. That sounds wonderful, all this great growth, but what that really tells you is that if you take all of 2020, the GDP in the U.S. actually contracted 3.5%. That is the worst since 1946. So you can see that a large dynamic. The chart clearly states how the U.S. economy pretty much came to a halt due to COVID. And as with everything else in the last year or so, everything revolves around COVID and how we're going to get through these challenges. Considering all of 2020, again, it contracted 3.5%. It's the worst performance since 1946. Which follows actual growth of 2019 of 2.2. So you can see how this has been a pretty profound effect on our economy here. Right now, the new Biden administration is working on unveiling a almost $2 trillion stimulus plan. However, with everything else in politics, it's taking a long time to get this passed, and we're going to try to see how we can get money to the people and get our economy moving. Next, please. All right. Another key factor of everyone's economy is the unemployment rate. We're going to look back real quick to see that a couple of times in U.S. history, we've seen unemployment plummet as so much as was done now. One of those times was in 1933, which is, of course, the U.S.'s Great Depression. The unemployment then reached almost about 25%. Unemployment remained, but the key now is the difference between then and now. We had another major recession in 1982, where unemployment rose about 11%. But the key between then and now is we're hoping that we can recover very quickly. Back in the Great Depression, it took 9 years for them to recover. And it took about 4 or 5 years from the recession of 1982 to recover to normalized unemployment. As you know, unemployment is one of the most critical economic features facing the country. Again, unemployment has not been this bad since the Great Depression, but we're coming back quickly, and we expect to come back quickly. Economists warn that the economy needs a widely distributed vaccine before we can get back to normal levels, and you'll see that that is a key feature in all the economies probably in the world, that we must get the vaccine to all the people to get everyone back to work. Next, please. Okay. Trade deficit. This is causing many different problems in the U.S. besides more money going out than coming in. It's also created a trade imbalance where we're all seeing throughout the world problems with containers and ports and all sorts of problems. So the U.S. has actually run large trade deficits for decades, and it's continued during the Trump era, despite his efforts to try to rein that in. Because the U.S. economy held up better than in the pandemic, Americans bought more exports than foreign customers bought U.S. imports. So this is compounding the problem we already had in the U.S. This largely explains why the trade deficit increased again in 2020. For the full year, the U.S. trade deficit rose almost 20% to almost $700 billion, which is the highest level since 2008. Again, that 2008 area, that's the time of another U.S. recession. The 2020 trade deficit is higher than in 2019 when it was almost $575 billion. So why is this happening? Consumer products are the primary drivers of the trade deficit. In 2020, the U.S. imported almost $2.5 trillion in consumer goods while only exporting $1.4 trillion. As you can guess, this is almost a $1 trillion deficit. In the past, another key economic feature was in the past, petroleum used to be a key factor in the U.S. deficit. This is really no longer. 2020, the U.S. imported about $120 billion worth of petroleum, which is the lowest amount since 2002. So while the U.S. is getting off of its dependence on petroleum, buying goods from other countries they've become more dependent on that. What the U.S. is actually doing a little better is they're now a net exporter of services. Services may include financial services, intellectual property, travel, stuff like that. So the U.S. exports of services were about $700 billion, which is the lowest since 2016, and that exceeds the imports of about $450 billion in 2011, just to give you an idea. All right, next, please. Okay, as you can see, just to give you an idea, these are some of, not surprisingly, China is our biggest deficit partner. Maybe a little more surprisingly, we have a large deficit with our friendly neighbors to the south in Mexico. Next, please. Okay, and here's just some of the figures for your records. You can see how, due to this economy, the U.S. kind of came back. They started buying more products, but due to the lag, we're seeing much more of a deficit than we usually do. Next, please. Okay, economic outlook in 2020. So we look back a little bit really quickly, and I just want to go quickly over, because time's a wasting, and I got to get moving here, a little bit about, I'll give you some key factors, but it appears economists and U.S. companies are all very positive for the future. I'll just skim through this quick. Estimates put together, a bunch of analysts all came together and they gave their forecast for the future. The GDP, they expect it to get to a growth of 4.2 in 2021, 3.2 in 2022, and 2.4 in 2023. So I can only hope that we can achieve these goals. And again, with vaccinations, hopefully we can get there shortly. Unemployment, we expect the unemployment rate will be 6.7 for the year 2020, but down to 5% hopefully in 2021, 4.2% in 22, and 3.7% in 2023. Very positive numbers coming up. Jobs, real quickly. Total employment to increase by 6 million jobs in the next 10 years. And just to point out real quick, a lot of this climate change was mentioned before. This is going to be a big factor going forward. The Federal Reserve is saying climate change could reduce the annual GDP growth rate by 1/3 of its historical averages. So this is something that we're going to have to tackle in the future. Moving on, please. Okay, very quickly, as we all know, the key to all of this is getting everyone vaccinated, getting everyone back to work. I'll just say, as you can see, it's going to take a while to get everyone vaccinated. Right now, there's only about 45 to 50 million doses given out in the U.S., and with a population over 300 million, we still have a ways to go. There's a lot of logistical issues, and we're trying to get everyone vaccinated as soon as possible to get the economy going. Next, please. Okay, I will briefly go over this because I've only got a minute or two in my...
Yeah, you have 2 minutes.
Yep, I got you. I got my thing here. All right, so I'm going to briefly go through this. As you all know, because if you're trying to export to the U.S., the port of Los Angeles has been a nightmare for bringing in. It's almost impossible to get freight there. The major problem was that at one point, 1,800 people were out of work due to COVID in Los Angeles. This created a backlog. A lot of these longshoremen who bring in, who take off the vessel were out of work. That caused by a major problem with chassis and a major problems with empty containers, because all the empty containers went to China. That is a major reason why there's a backlog. This has caused also problems. Moving on, please. I'll get through this quickly. Keep going. All right. Yeah, the time in ports has been increased dramatically, and we're having a major issue getting stuff through. This is expected to be through the spring, and hopefully this summer we can get this backlog taken care of. Moving on. I will skip over LTL shipments because that is also reverberated as a major problem in the U.S. This is all caused by lots of job loss early in the year in April, and the lag in getting these people back to work. But because the economy is back moving again and the GDP is moving again, the major issue here is that these people are not back to work yet, and there's heavy demand for all sorts of logistics across the U.S. Moving on. All right, I'll briefly go through this very quickly in my last 30 seconds. That we've seen some ingenuity in personal care and some the usage in certain items have gotten down a lot, but the U.S. has actually increased part of their personal care usage with adapting to people staying at home. Moving on, we've seen, moving on again, lubricant consumption has come down, but I'll just skip over and say the positive side is projections are a big recovery this year and in 2021. So while there'll be a blip on the radar, we expect lubricants to come back. And all this affects, there you can see it on the chart there, 2020, you see it going down, but we expect the curve to continue. Why is this good? 12-HSA, methyl 12, HCO, all of this, we really did not see, we saw a slight decline for about half the year this year, but we're starting to see things coming around, which is good news for the industry. And back to, we'll go to the last slide now. Just as I cut away, keep going, you can see auto industry, okay, there you go. Castor bulk imports. I suspected a decrease this year in bulk imports. Not so. We saw a nice recovery in December, and we're actually seeing an increase from the last couple of years. In addition to that, we're also seeing good movement on ISO tanks, even some flexi tanks. So I suspect if you add that together, we are seeing actually a good movement in castor coming to the US, as well as probably about a 20% increase in derivatives. Lots of ingenuity. More companies are getting into castor derivatives in the US, and we're seeing increased demand from older customers. So just to sum up, I think the outlook looks really good going forward. As long as we get these vaccinations done and get everyone back together, get through these logistical backlogs, we are in good shape moving forward. So thank you all. Sorry I cut off very shortly, and I appreciate the time today. Thank you, Abhay.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Thank you for the insightful presentation. So it looks all positive, and we quickly move to Mr. Wang and Ms. Vivian Patel to give the presentation. I believe, Vivian, you are going to make the presentation on behalf of Jinghua. So please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vivian from Hengshui Jinghua Chemical. I will behalf of our president, Mr. Wang, to share the presentations about the China current and the castor industry in China in 2020. Next slide. First, I will give a short brief of our group and our company. Hengshui Jinghua Chemical is subordinated to Jinghua Resource Steel Group. And our main business is steel, but Jinghua is the only one chemical company in the group. Next slide. Jinghua founded in 2001. It's a leading company in the global subsea assets industries. Our main product is subsea assets, and the annual production capacity is 45,000 tons. And which global share market of more than 55%. Next slide. Oh, and this photos is our factory plant. The last photo is castor oil container unloading area. We can unload 28 flagship on the same time. Wow. Next slide.
Ms. Patel, I'm sorry. May I request you to please move a bit closer to the mic so that we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, all right.
Sorry about this, but thank you very much.
And look back at 2020, it was a very special year for any countries and anyone in the world. And currently, at the best world controlled epidemic country in China, it steadily progresses in the economic cover. And on the 18th of January, China government released the GDP in 2020. Growth rate is 2.3 years. But I may say, especially in 2020, everything had to see on quarterly. Even demand, even supply, even the GDP, you can see the numbers can feel how the country economy to be recovered. And the first quarter, due to China lockdown, the GDP have decreased 6.8%. But in the fourth quarters, that GDP have recovered 6.8%, 6.5%. And in the IMF have forecast in next year, China GDP will touch 8% next year. Next slide, please. With the launch of vaccine and vaccinations, the adoption of the COVID-19 implementations planned by the WHO, and also USA election has set down, and also many Europe countries adopt a variety of stimulus measures. I think our Europe and the USA friend will be present in the measures. They are all inject a strong confidence in the economy recovered in 2021. And we believe in 2021 will be boosting global economy. Next slide. And 2020, due to the world situation, the price of castor oil have to following down. And in fact, China castor plantations will be minimized in 2020. According Castor Association of China, the only 1,000 of tons of castor seed in 2020. Next slide. And in 2020, I think China have gave best performance. The numbers import more than 3 lakh tons of castor oil from India. And also congratulations, India has touched the highest export number again, almost 6.6 lakhs. And in last year, February conference, all around the conference, we are worried about China demand, China economy, how in fact. So I think no more worried until the date. There have some reasons why this number have jumped up. The first, I may say, is in China 2020, the China reduced the import of 12 SSA and also reduced import recursion assets. They were to import castor oil. And the second reason, also other application user sales demand also grows steadily. And the third, about the inventory. This is a very popular question for me in last quarters. Everybody was calling how is the inventory in China? And then, by the way, I also received the answer as well. China should be high inventory. Here I may say that about the two reasons I given, that sales demand had increased as well, it means consumption also increased. And also have to talking about from 2019 last quarters, the China has empty lowest inventory as historical, because in the production numbers from India have announced in 2020 have a big crop, and the castor oil user have forecast in 2020 price have to be come down. So even in the last February, the price level even come $1,000 to CF China. So this price support to users, castor oil user in China to keep some certain inventory is without the risk. And also because the lockdown in China, Indian period from the end of first quarter, second quarter has a shortage of materials, panic buying, and the China users has increased their original inventory period to cope with the uncertainties that may rise again. And also shipping logistics also appeared in the tight situation. These all reasons, in fact, these numbers, how much these 3 lakh tons happened. So also I may say that we feel the inventory in China is recovered to normal or exceed to slight higher. Next slide, please. About the price, I already said in just about the import volume. And also I may say here is another point. From this chart over the last 3 years, we can see in the arrival seasons, April and May, the price have jumped up in the highest in the year. And in the arrival, that sowing season in the August and September, the price has come down lowest. I think until here, everyone will understand what I'm talking about. Especially in this year, the situation has big changed. The castor seed sowing has more competitors from other edible seeds, because edible oil has jumped like anything. And also this year MSP, I have not knowing idea how it's going on MSP, but see the situation farmers and the Indian government problem between. I believe this year MSP for other crop should be higher. So this point I would mention that in this year our castor industry members should do some homework to protect our castor farmers to continue showing our castor plant. Next slide. And here is some number given castor oil usage, castor oil usage, and subsidiary assets still similar like 2019. And 12SA has consumed 35,000 tons. And the foam sealing has to consume 24,000 tons. The reason is that the foam sealing raw material polonium oxide price have to jump up, some producer have switched to castor oil. And other adhesives also is jumped up, consumed 55,000 tons of castor oil. And also due to the foreigner country affected by the COVID-19, some productions had to stop. They are diverted to China import. So total annual consumption of castor oil is around 2.85 lakhs. And the inventory we see maybe around 30 percentage. Next slide, please. And subsidiary assets annual production by Jinghua in 2020, we have produced 41,000 tons and consumed oil around 82,500 tons. Its share market about 56%. China annual productions total about 73,000 tons, reduced 8% compared to last year. And another point here, I may say that subsidiary assets last year have consumed 1.6 lakh tons of castor oil, which only account for nearby 53% of total volume of imports. And compared to recent years, subsidiary assets have count nearby 70% of import total volume. This year had to reduce share. It means that other applications have to steadily rise demand. And with in 2021, Jinghua will have a big technological innovations on the basis of our current original equipment to increase the production capacity can reach 50,000 tons. And we had a capacity before 45,000 tons. After the innovations, the capacity should touch 50,000 tons. And in 2021, we plan to productions about 46,000 tons. Nearly consumed castor oil should be touch 1 lakh tons. Next slide, please. China has become the largest consumer of subsidiary assets users, shared 45% of the market.
Vivian, just
just two slides, we finish.
Okay.
And the subsidiary assets product obligations major is the premiers have to share the 49%. Next slide, please. And due with the recovery economy in the global in 2021, the market demand for subsidiary assets we expanded 85,000 tons to 90,000 tons. And the reason subsidiary as the green nature of product, and also the news that implementation of China plastic ban. By the end of 2020, the nationwide star hotel not provide any disposal products. This also showing the demand degradable plastic is at a strong stage in the future. Next slide, please. And this year we also prepared a balance sheet of castor oil and castor oil consumptions. And due to above the all reasons I given in my presentations, we expired in 2021. The castor oil imports should be 2.7 lakhs and maybe come back 2017 or 2018 levels. Next slide. In the last slide here, I may say Jinghua almost consumed 1 lakh tons castor oil in the year. So as the important link industry, we are willing to continue support of our Indian farmers, also continue to support our sea organizations. And thanks Dr. Mehta to give us this chance to take some responsibilities. And Dr. Ashok have said one nations of one market. I may say is one market, one joint families. So because China has shared have 50% of castor oil market, so we are joint venture family. We should be support castor industries in coming year. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Take care,
Vivian.
please.
Thank you. It
Thank
was
you
an
very much.
excellent,
Thank you.
excellent presentation as always. So we
Thank
have
you.
the
Thank you very
insight,
much.
of the castor market going forward, because as you rightly said, 50% is China or 45% is China. So we thank China for continuing to use castor oil and of course the other products that you're buying today into China. So thank you very much again. And now we'll move to our next speaker. We have Mr. Rabah, trader from Loiret and Haentjens, France, to share insights about the dynamics in Europe. Rabah?
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, it's all very clear. Please go ahead.
Okay,
just
perfect.
reminding you of the timing. So if you
I will try to do my best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Can I see my presentation, please? Yeah, I will talk for my side about the European economy and the castor oil industry. Next slide, please. For the summary, I will talk about, it will be small introduction. We'll talk about the COVID-19, European economy, the industry of the castor in Europe, and I will finish by our forecast for 21-22. Next slide, please. It's important to say that our economy is confronted to different crises we had for the last centuries. 1929, production crisis, 2008, financial crisis, and now in 2020, we are facing to new crisis, which is really undocumented one, and it's a pandemic crisis. Let's see what is the impact of this pandemic in Europe. Next slide, please. Next one, please. Here is the graphic for what we have in Europe. We have 500,000 people died already. We have 2 lockdowns, and the big interesting thing, if there is any interesting with this crisis, is this, and we had the big lockdown, but between the first and the second, we had major countries learned how to live with this kind of lockdown, with this kind of high rate of new cases on daily basis. And the good news now is it seems that we have a vaccine, so people are started to vaccination. Next slide, please. We could see here the percentage of people vaccinated. We have 1.5%. It's not a lot, but it's a good sign. It was 86K per day in December, more in January, and we are expecting 500,000 per day in coming days. Next slide, please. So the good point is we have a vaccination. The bad point is if we would like to finish the vaccination in September, as all governments are saying, we need to have 2.5 million vaccine per day. And today it seems that we are far away from this level. So if I consider what we are doing today, we need like 3 years in order to finish all the vaccination. The vaccine is a good sign, but the logistic for the vaccine, it seems that it's taking some time. But anyhow, we will have to learn to work with COVID situation. Now we'll see what is going on the economy. Next slide, please. Next one, please. Here we'll discuss few indicators. We'll make some comparison between what we are living now and what we lived in 2008. Next slide, please. As I told you, this COVID-19 crisis is a new one. When we see what happened in 2008, when we talk about the capacity utilization in Europe, it was deep, but not the deepest as we had in 2019, 2020. 2020, all Europe was shut down for 2 months approximately. But what is really surprising is the stock of finished product. When you see the finished product, you see that in 2019, we had the financial crisis, and after the financial crisis, it becomes to be a production crisis with high stocks everywhere, with no sellers, no buyers. For our crisis, it's not the same. The stock of finished product is less, and we could see that at the end of November, that this stock is already low. Could we, next slide, please? Let's see now the GDP. The GDP, we are living in a recession for sure. Europe is experiencing minus 7.6% on the GDP. It's one of the biggest for the last 2 decades. But even with this situation, you know, our governments learned from both crises that we had already. So all governments said, we will help the economy whatever it takes. And whatever it takes has a cost at the end of the day. Next slide, please. Here is how we financed the crisis at the end of the day. 2008, we had an increase on the debt, government debt, by 10%, and this 10% was made in 2 years. For our crisis, the government decided to help whatever it takes, and this whatever it takes is making all the Europe by 16, all the European debt plus 16%, which is really amazing. Now, how our economy, how the Castor industry is involving in this, in all of this environment. Next slide, please. Next one, please. Here are the main applications for the Castor. Just to see what are the main applications of the Castor in Europe. Next slide, please. Here is our consumption. Our consumption for 2020, we see a decrease of 11%, 11.60%. If we compare to what we had in 2018, we are consuming less 20% roughly. How could we explain this kind of decrease in the market? Is it a problem of price? Is it a problem of main application, of COVID application, even with some helps for the economy? Next slide, please. The pricing, when we see the price, we had a jump on the price from June to November on the Castor from India, because the price was really high, was really low. But at the end of the day, for our economy, we had the chance of a bigger, as importer, of higher euro rate. So the increase on the NCDX was offset in part by the euro. Next slide, please. Now we are saying, here is the euro. The euro jumped by 25%, roughly. We were at 1.10, and now we are at 1.20. So we say that the price is really low, that the demand should be, if we consider economic side, the demand should be higher, but no, because of the COVID, but which is the main factor influencing the COVID situation. Let's see the next slide, please. The automotive sector, the most important part, maybe one of the most important part of the industry, the consumption of the castor, for the consumption of the castor oil. And we see for the first time in 2 decades, Europe sold on less than 10 million cars, minus 35%. It was a crazy year. So even if we had these kinds of whatever it takes to help the economy, but if you're not selling cars, you will not produce polymer or polyoil in order to make it, or even coatings for these cars. So after all these points, we will move to the next slide and to see what are our forecasts for the next coming years. Here it's the chemical industry. At the end of the day, when we compare what happened in 2008, the chemical industry production was really impacted. You know, it was deeply, we have a crackdown, it was deeply impacted. For the COVID situation, we didn't see this kind of deep production, you know. We didn't have it. Why? Because all plants were shut down for 2 months. Essential plants were working. And after that, we saw some solid demand for products like sanitarization or other products. So at the end of the day, the chemical industry is doing good in Europe at the end of the day. Next slide, please. The other point is, as we said before, the veg oils and castor oil price. We have a stable castor oil, and all veg oils are really higher. Price are based in US dollar on ex-tank basis. So it could be good things for our industry at the end of the day. Next slide, please. Now it's the castor. As you know, when we are involved in the castor oil, we have to keep an eye open on the Brent oil, on the petroleum oil. So the spread between seems to be, it seems to be 2%, 2.5, something like that. The industry knows how to work in this with this manner. As we analyze the three factors, let's move to the next slide, please. As we said, the chemical industry is doing good. The veg oil price is the castor compared to veg oil's price seems to be good also. So we expect rebound in the demand. We're expecting plus 9% on the demand, but it will be less than what we had in 2019 because of what is doing on the automotive sector. Because at the end of the day in Europe, with all these restrictions, when you are working in the bar or in the restaurant, if you would like to buy a car or to have some savings, today with this situation, you will prefer to have some savings. So even if we forecast, if it's why we are forecasting 8%, it will be the level, approximately the level that we had in 2019. And after this, I will move to my conclusion. Next. Okay, to make a conclusion, the industry have to face two different challenges. The world have to face two different challenges. In Europe, we are talking about the automotive sectors, about the new regulation that we will have. We don't know if we have, how things will move. The government debt, and a lot of things that different governments should answer. But the big point, if there is an interesting point of this COVID situation, is terms like sustainability, bio-based products. In the top of the pandemic crisis, you have only few public list company stocks or public stocks company which performed. They have a high rate of the ESG. Environmental, social, and governance. So all investors were looking to invest in sustainability and in environment health, which is a good sign for our economy. Not maybe for this year, but for the 10 years coming, it's a good sign because it could be supportive in the future. It could be supportive in the future for our economy. The main point is we have to, as industry, to organize and to offer enough product to the industry and to say to industry, we are not facing to any shortage every year, because if you have to produce for 1 year, you need to know that you are able to produce from what India is producing. It's why for me, we have some good signs. We have a lot of challenges, but we still have some good signs for all the oleochemical product and especially for the castor oil. Next slide, please. And I would like to thank you for your attention and apologize for a technical issue that we had.
Thank you, Rabah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. It was very interesting. And we can assure you, castor oil from India is going to be there for all the worldwide users. So don't worry about any castor oil supplies. We'll move to the next speaker, Mr. Thomas Milkey. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Thomas Milkey. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Nice to see you.
Same.
We were expecting, like usual, your virtual presentation, but your live presentation.
Yeah. Well, I recorded it 60 minutes ago, so it's almost live.
Okay.
I was not so confident with the internet connection. Well, I think you better play it, otherwise it gets 20 minutes.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Milky, I'll be playing your video. Wherever you need to add something, please let me know and I can pause it for you.
Thank you. A very good afternoon from Germany to all of you. It is a pleasure for me to contribute to your conference today and discuss with you the global outlook for castor seed and oil. Impacts from the supply shortage and sharply higher prices of edible oils. What are these impacts? How long can current comparatively low palm oil prices persist? Oil World, international, statistical, agricultural information. We are analyzing the global market on oilseeds, oils, and meals, and we do this since 1958. Our connection to India has always been very intensive through all these years, and I'm happy about all the friends I have in the Indian market. We are providing forecasts on supply, demand, and prices, independent, not involved in trading. At the moment, castor oil prices are comparatively low at $1,310 for Kandla and at about 1,580 in Rotterdam. The price average for October-February 2020-21 was approximately $100 below the most recent 10-year average. World supplies are sufficiently large. We expect an increase in world supplies by about 6% to a new high in the current season. Production is sufficiently large to satisfy a recovery in demand in Europe and North America, as well as further growth in China, and still facilitate an accumulation of stocks worldwide. This is good news for consumers. But the low prices, the comparatively low prices relative to competing crops, will influence planting decisions of farmers for next season and will probably result in a shortage in 2022. World production. India production has turned out better than expected. Our estimate is 1.8 million tons. Other estimates are somewhat higher. Still, this 1.8 million tons is a surprisingly good result considering the sharp decline in plantings. In 2 consecutive years, the average yield in India was considerably above trend. Better technology, better quality seeds, as well as generally favorable weather contributed to 2 relatively high crops last year and last season and again this season. Look at the development over the past 10 years. Production in China plummeted from 160,000 tons now to less than 20, probably closer to 10. Brazilian production also declined sharply. Brazilian producers cannot compete with Indian farmers, obviously. from 140 to only 43,000 tons. Supplies are sufficiently ample at the moment. Now, what is the situation for castor oil? We expect a considerable increase in production, in crushings and production of castor oil, primarily in India. India has, of course, become the leader and is accounting for 92% of world production, while the Brazilian share is flat at about 2%, and production and crushings in China are declining. World imports of castor oil accelerated since the July-September 2020 quarter under the lead of China. They continued to stay well above a year ago in October-December. And for the full season, we expect world exports to recover and increase to 690,000 tons. China, 330, probably 320, 330,000 tons. This is our estimate, and higher imports in the European Union and the US and some other countries. In China, domestic consumption of castor oil has recovered since mid-2020, and this trend is likely to continue. Also for the European Union and North America, we see consumption recovering in the current season. A shortage of castor seed and oil, ladies and gentlemen, could be developing worldwide next season. This will be determined by India, of course, the key player, which accounts for 95% of world production and of world exports, 95% of world exports. At the moment, domestic prices of castor seed in India are only at around 45,000 rupiah, considerably lower than domestic prices of soybeans and even more so below the domestic prices for groundnuts and rapeseed, as well as other crops. There's no minimum support price system for castor. It's not an edible oilseed. The edible oilseeds, groundnuts, rapeseed, soybeans were supported by the strong high world market prices, as well as the ongoing high Indian import taxes. So castor is losing competitiveness. Look at what happened on the world market. Big increases since August, big increases in soybeans, 44% increase from early August until yesterday. Soya meal also rising sharply, but biggest increases in sunflower oil prices, which at the Black Sea is currently quoting at close to $1,400. Also of course affecting India as the biggest importer of sunflower oil. Palm oil prices skyrocketing in Indonesia and Malaysia as a result of lower than expected production. Palm kernel oil considerably higher, soybean oil considerably higher, and rapeseed oil. All these price increases have influenced also the domestic prices of edible oil seeds in India. It is a situation in the current season in which a supply shortage is happening at the same time in all the four major oils. Considerably larger than expected production losses due to drought in the Black Sea region, sharply reducing world export supplies of sunflower oil this year. Palm oil production and export supplies lower than expected in Indonesia and Malaysia, stocks at minimum levels primarily in Malaysia. Rapeseed oil tight in Europe, in Canada, on the world market. Chinese buying. China just purchased large quantity of European rapeseed oil, additionally pulling up prices. Canadian crushings and exports have been unsustainably high recently. And soybeans suffered production losses due to poor weather in the US last year, as well as now in Brazil and Argentina. Also some bullishness coming from soybean oil, also partly as a result of huge Chinese imports. And these bullish factors from the world market in edible oils are affecting domestic prices in India for the edible oilseeds, and they have contributed to deteriorated competitiveness of castor seed growing in India. What are the impacts for castor oil? There is a relatively high risk of a global production deficit in castor developing in 2022 on account of reduced Indian production. This will be partly moderated by relatively high carryover stocks from the current season, but still we are heading into a tighter situation, most likely into a tighter situation next year. Castor consumers in the importing countries will probably take advantage of the current relatively low prices and raise purchases from India to build stocks in coming months ahead of the possibly higher prices. We expect some downward price movement in edible oils on the world market in April, June, and in July, Sept, but this downward potential will be limited as long as vegetable oil stocks have not been replenished to more comfortable levels. But some price pressure is likely to occur from the April-June quarter on account of seasonally rising palm oil production, a seasonally rising South American soya oil production and soya oil exports, and in particular from the prospects of sizably increased oilseed production in the Northern Hemisphere next season, starting from August or September onward. And farmers at the moment in North America, in several other countries, they are preparing to considerably increase spring plantings to take advantage of the current high prices. With this, ladies and gentlemen, I conclude my presentation, wishing you a good, productive conference, and if I can be of assistance, please let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Milke, for sharing your views on the global markets. Very interesting. I think it's a challenge for castor this year with good production. And I think fortunately, all edible oil prices are ruling higher. Unlike, for the past several years, castor was at the high end. Now it's at the lower end. So we hope your insights into the market is going to definitely benefit all the participants today. Thank you very much. So I would request Mr. Shailesh Baldha, who is the general manager at Adani Wilmar, to share his insights on the Indian market dynamics. Shailesh, please, if you could stick to your time and give us your presentation.
I'm thankful to organizers of this wonderful conference to express my views on castor dynamics in India.
Shailesh, can you be a little louder or speak closer to the mic? Thank you.
Yeah. I'd like to start my presentation with broader aspects of prevailing economic situations in India. So, current government of India under leadership of Sri Narendra Modi is perceived to be a strong and decisive, which is very much required for a developing country like India. So the government is stepping ahead with structural reforms like digitalization, which is creating efficiency in the system and also ensuring minimum leakages and bottlenecks. Tax reforms, including GST, is also getting streamlined, ensuring transparency in the business. Government is on its toes to get them some of the new reforms, including agriculture, as Dr. Dalwai mentioned. Due to COVID pandemic, Indian GDP may contract by 8% during 2020. However, the situation has improved and Indian GDP may grow by 11.5% as per the latest forecast by IMF. Good news, CPI inflation is at 4.6%, which is allowing the Apex Bank of India
Shailesh bhai, we've lost.
lower, which is the stock levels are. I'll switch over to Castor plantation. So Castor, earlier during this part of the year, we were expecting a low area of 30 to 40%. However, the first spell of monsoon was good, but later the monsoon was delayed and there was heavy rains in August, September, which resulted in increase in acreage. Overall, all India basis, the monsoon was 109% of the long-term average. Gujarat, which is the main castor sowing area, the rainfall is 158% of the long-term average. This resulted in a castor area of 8.32 versus 9.92 lakh hectares last year, a decrease of 16% as against the previous expectation lower. Castor sowing in Gujarat is 6.38 lakh hectare versus 7.41 lakh hectares, a decrease of 14%. We are also taking different estimates by Government of India. As per the second advance estimate by Government of Gujarat, castor seed production is expected to be 14.7 lakh metric ton as against 14.3. So they are showing increase in production this year as compared to last year. This is mainly because of increase in yield from 1944 kg per hectare to 2303 kg per hectare. So this is a surprising element. Next slide, please.
Mr. Baldha, could you please be a little louder?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but a lot of participants
Yes.
are not able to hear you clearly. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So next slide. So castor seed plantation trend. So if we see last 10 years trend, we can see that castor seed is average planted into 800,000 to 1200,000 hectares. We can see in 2011, there was a spike in acreage that was mainly because of increase in price during that time. Later, the castor acreage has declined from 1.3 lakh hectare to almost 800,000 hectares. That is mainly because of decrease in price from $2,400 to $1,200. Again, the castor area increased in 2019 because of increased price during sowing season. This helped in increase acreage. 2020, again, it declined by 16% as we discussed. Next slide. Next is castor sowing and crop projection. If we have tried to use government declared area to extrapolate the number, earlier we were projecting decrease in yield by 10%, which was giving a number of 1.5 lakh hectares. If we now, with the favorable season during growth of plantation, so we are expecting a similar or higher yield. If we expect same yield, the crop appears to be around 1.7. We may hear this from the surveying agency, the final numbers. Next slide. So I try to make a comparison between castor seed and castor oil prices with main competing crops. So So on oil side, there is not much competition on switching over of application, but on castor seed, there is a direct competition between sowing of castor seed versus sowing of other commodities. So we can see that castor prices are still lower as compared to other competing crops like cotton and peanut. These are the main competing crops for castor. In addition, castor being a non-food crop, there is no MSP on castor, whereas the MSP for other crops are already declared by government, and the MSP are much higher than the price of castor. So that is a disadvantage for castor. Next slide. So I've tried to plot the MSP of different agri-commodities for last 10 years. We can see the MSP from 2010-11 to current year. The MSP has almost got double what these numbers were before 10 years. So the MSP has increased for almost all the commodities, and castor price has to increase at this pace to compete with other commodities. Yeah. Next slide. This castor oil export trend from India. If we see last 10 years numbers, the castor oil exports from India has increased from 300,000 ton to more than 600,000 ton. The overall annualized growth of castor oil exports from India is almost 7 to 8% in the last 10 years. There are small variations in castor oil export number in 1 year to other that may be contributed by change in inventory level from 1 year to other, or because of change of some carryover of some bulk vessel from 1 year to another. Otherwise, the trend line shows 7 to 8% growth. If we expect a similar trend, we should not get surprised if the export number during 2021 touches 700,000 ton. Yeah, next slide. I've tried to compare castor oil
Mr. Baldha, we are losing you. Mr. Baldha.
Exports India. So I've divided the exports from India in two parts. If you see on the right hand side, for last 4 years is 600 variations in the quantities. If we take 2018 as a base, there is a decrease of 16% castor oil export to China, which is again recovered, and in with the same base of 2018, China has again added that 16,000 ton, and the inventory level seems to be normal, what the Chinese speakers talked about. Europe remains to be similar number.
We have
Mr. Baldha.
The overall during 2009 to 18, and next slide. Only 2 slides left. Yeah. Next slide is castor balance sheet. So castor balance sheet, I have taken the crop number of 1.675 million metric ton as compared to 1.675 metric ton, and with a carry in of 0.33 metric ton, the total availability is 2 million metric ton during 2021 as compared to 2.2 million metric ton in 2020. If we compare a similar export number during 2021, then the carry out appears to be 1.6 lakh tons. So we can know the final numbers from the surveying agency in coming sessions. Next slide. And last slide is castor price outlook. So in shorter term, bearing small pockets, the overall yield and oil content in the new crop may be better than expectations. Harvest is already under progress. Extended cold weather is delaying arrivals. The arrival pattern may show a sharp increase once the weather gets warmer. Unlike last year, the non-speculative farmers may sell off their produce immediately after harvest, because last year there were hurdles due to COVID lockdown. The seed arrivals may increase and may see a peak during April. Unless some speculator or stockist get active, the possibility of very high price during season is low. In longer term view, castor is still low price as compared to most other crops. Speculative or rich farmers may hold back the stock because they can sell the high price crop and they can retain castor for a longer term. The responsiveness of farmer is very high. If the price remains lower as compared to other crops, the farmer may not have attraction to go for sowing in next season. So the next sowing may get lower if the prices remain low. Basis perception about upcoming sowing, the trade participant may start taking decision basis 18-month balance sheet instead of 6 months. So they can take a longer view and take positions and take decisions. So in nutshell, if the price remains softer during peak arrival season, there is a possibility of bull run during later part of 2021. But if price remains higher during the season, the long-term trend may be range bound as it was in 2020. And critical factors which we need to closely look on, like COVID situation, price trend, as we have discussed, MSP, the monsoon pattern, because that also affects the upcoming sowing, the global economic trends, and currencies, exchange rates, supply chain bottlenecks. These are the critical issues which we need to look at and take our decisions. So that was from my side. Thank you very much. Stay safe and healthy. Have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Shailesh ji. Very nice presentation. Good point is that with your trend line, we can see that the industry is going to grow. We could be 700,000 tons in 2021. So let's hope and see that the industry really grows. Thank you very much. And I give you back the mic, Harshal. For the next session, we are running short of time.
Sure. So thank you, Mr. Udeshi, and thank you all the speakers for this enriching session. We once again apologize to all our participants for the technical glitches that we encountered in the last session. After this data-packed session at the global level, we now move to the grassroots level. SEA has put in dedicated efforts towards improving the agricultural productivity and the yield output. SEA has been constantly engaging with our farmer friends and encouraging them to adopt better agronomic practices and to innovate. To recognize the efforts of our farmer friends, SEA would like to present before you Shri Vittaldas G. Udeshi Castor Innovation Awards 2021. Let us know more about these awards.
Shri Vittaldas Udeshi, who is also hailed as the father of modern castor oil production in India, pioneered the castor crushing industry in 1952. He was a visionary who made India the top castor oil supplier to the world, with support from the government of Gujarat. To honor his rich legacy, the Solvent Extractors Association of India, which is dedicated to the promotion and growth of the industry, together with Jain Agro Organics Limited, has initiated the Shri Vittaldas Udeshi Castor Innovation Award. This award has been established to recognize contributions made by various relevant stakeholders to the castor oil industry, such as farming, research, agronomy, production, and more. The man who has inspired a revolution in India continues to inspire and recognize the generations to come. Shri Vittaldas Udeshi Castor Innovation Award.
While many of our farmer friends have won this award, we would like to present awards to some of the top performing farmers. Mr. Udeshi, you may also want to comment at appropriate places.
So every year we have been giving this award, and this year too we have selected a few farmers. The first one is Koli Achalaram Velaramji. He has been given the award, yeah. So, Arshal, I think you should continue.
Yes. So the first award goes to Shri Koli Achalaram Velaramji. He hails from Sirohi district in Rajasthan, and he achieved an outstanding castor productivity of close to 8,000 kilograms per hectare area. And he has been awarded with cash of INR 25,000 and a certificate from SEA. The second winner goes, the second prize goes to Sri Thakur Sharwanji Chhagaji. He hails from the Banaskantha district in Gujarat with a productivity of more than 6,700 kgs per hectare. He receives a cash award of 15,000 and a certificate from SEA. The third award goes to Sri Chaudhary Manabhai Raghavai. Again, he hails from Banaskantha, Gujarat, and he's achieved output of more than 6,300 kg per hectare. He receives an award of 10,000 rupees along with the certificate. This one is very special. We have Srimati Patel Jashodaben Kantibai, a female farmer who hails from Aravali, Gujarat, and she's done an outstanding job of achieving 6,300 kg per hectare area of castor output, and she receives a cash award of 10,000 and the certificate from SEA. This is more to the women power in current times. This one is a special award. This one goes especially to Patel Mukesh Kumar Motibai. The award is special because he not only achieved close to 5,500 kg of output, but he also encourages, motivates, and shares the agronomic practices with the fellow farmers. And in recognition of his ability and his willingness to share knowledge with his fellow farmers, SCA recognizes him with a 10,000 rupees cash award and a certificate. We would encourage more and more farmers to come forward and be part of this mission. And SCA is always ready to support them in all the ways that it can.
Thank you. I think it was very nicely presented during the COVID times where SCA managed to go to each of the farmers. We had them ascertain that the yields, what they have been talking, we have achieved those yields. So what is important is to appreciate and acknowledge that we can achieve higher yields in our castor farming. I remember the days when we were only about 1,700 kilos or 1,800 kilos per hectare. But this way of encouragement to the farmers and improving the productivity is really an excellent job, which I think we all must support, and we continue to do that at SCA. Thank you very much. Arshal, I think you can move to the next slot now.
Yes, so moving on to next, the dedicated team of industry stalwarts along with SCA has been instrumental in providing the farmers with the support and guidance and resources, as you saw. SCA team, headed by Mr. Haresh Vyas, was the project in charge for Castor Model Farm Project, and Mr. Bhavin Chatrala, the project in charge for the Water Conservation Project, along with Dr. B.V. Mehta, Executive Director, SCA, have been working jointly with farmers in adopting better agronomic practices and thereby improving the productivity and yield output. To highlight the efforts by this dedicated team, I would like to invite Mr. Vyas to provide an update on both the projects. Mr. Vyas, over to you. Looks like Mr. Vyas has dropped out.
Dr. Mehta, you can...
Yeah, I can. Haresh, are you there? Otherwise, I'll continue. Okay, I'll continue. Yeah, slides, please. Next slides. SCA Castor Model Farm. What we have done during 2016 to 2020. We completed 5 years. Thanks to one and all who participate in this project. Look at this progress here. The first year we had 68 model farms. Next year 140. Third year we had 258 model farms. Fourth year 405. And the last year, of course, we had gone with the 500 model farms. Unfortunately, due to flooding, we have to drop about 150 model farms. So 362 model farms. And look at we had coordinators, about 8 coordinators managing these model farms. And area covered last year was about 350 acres. Yeah. Next. Yeah. Now look at here. What is the yield we got it in model farms versus non-model farms in the last 4 years. We started with the first year. The model farm, we had a 3,500 kg per hectare. Next year, the model farm, we got about 4,516 kg versus non-model farm, 2,500 kg per hectare. Third year, 3,846 kg per hectare against 2,455. That was a bad year for the agriculture, bad year. Last fourth year, we got about 4,300 kg per hectare, and against non-model farms, it was at 2,500 kg. And the last year, we had 4,400 kg per hectare against 3,200 kg hectare of the non-model farms, up by 37%. So every year, the area, area is increasing, or yield is increasing year by year in the model farm. Next. Huh? Bhai, are you there?
I am very much there. I was not, I was muted, so I could not speak.
Yeah, okay, now you take over. You take over. This is your baby.
Thank you so much. So, before I continue on this, I'd like to congratulate C for getting registration of more than 600 delegates, which is commendable and a record. So, congratulations, Dr. Mehta. And now, can you just go back one slide, Harshal? Yeah. So when I say, when we see the numbers of 4,422 as a yield this year, honestly speaking, this should be much more than that. But maybe somewhere something lacked. I expected to cross 5,000 kgs this year around because of a very good weather around. But unfortunately, maybe, we might not have, the auditors might not have selected the right farms for the yield. But I'm pretty sure that the yield this year is way beyond what is projected here on the model farms. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is what the industry has come forward and supported. Even during the COVID times, we had support from more than 15 members globally, and which contributed nearly 5 million rupees, which is like a good amount, and the whole amount was spent, this time around. And this was one of the most challenging year because of the pandemic. And I should here congratulate Mr. Chirag Bua, the principal coordinator, and his team. In spite of the COVID situation, they worked diligently, and they ran around every place, every farm, and saw that the farmers were supported in spite of the pandemic situation. So Chirag and his team, once more, a big congratulations and thank you to you guys. Next slide, please. So you can see the effort, 5 years effort, from the C team, and the C effort has really, really changed the agronomic practices wherever we have worked, and also in distance places or surrounding places. Thereby we would be seeing, when the crop estimation comes around, you will see a remarkable change in the yields that we are going to get. And overall, I am pretty confident that these yields, what we are going to achieve this year, will be sustained yields, because the good agronomic practices, as supported by C, is spreading, very much beyond our expectations. And we'll see in the future that we will see the yield improvement continuously growing, thereby benefiting the farmers to a large extent. You can move to the next slide, please. So, these are the principal reasons, and these are the principal good agronomy practices that we have called. We supply good quality seeds. This time around, we ventured out with the new quality, that is GCH8, a new hybrid variety developed by the Datiwada University, and which has, I should inform you that, which has yielded good results. And this was the first time it was experimented. We are expecting, better results to come from the GCH high yielding variety next year. This is a robust plant, and this also has, the seeds are containing more oil compared to the traditional GCH7 variety. So overall, I see as and when the GCH 8 varieties adopted across Gujarat and Rajasthan, there will be a good yield improvement, and good oil output from the seeds that we are going to have. As you all know, we do spacing, the distancing. We use the swas, that is we use soil, air, water. That is the fundamentals. And our coordinators provide very good guidance to the farmers, which is appreciated at around. Next slide, please. So this is the target for the next year, and we are going to go for 600 model farms, and along with these model farms, we are going to have 250 farms under water harvesting projects, where we encourage farmers to harvest their excessive rainwater, and we expect that we are going to spend close to 8 billion rupees next year. And as usual, I expect the industry to support this project and help bringing more sustainability to the farmers and spreading a good word about what we are trying to do. Next slide, please. I think rain harvest, this is our pet project for the future, and we are going to work hard on this. Next slide, please. So this year, we normally do this water harvesting projects on a 50-50 basis. So where the C bears 50% of the cost and the participating farmer bears the 50% of the project cost, whereby we make them responsible. If we give them 100% free, the responsibility on their part will be not as, the commitment will not be as much. So we make them. So basically, recharging is done by 3 ways: recharging of the well, open well, then we do recharging of bore well, and in case a farmer doesn't have both the things, we do recharging on a pit formation. Next slide, please. So from these pictures, you can see, the wells are being recharged directly. Next slide, please. This is the bore well recharge. So we have a sort of a filtration system around the bore well, and we see that the water is excessive water is diverted into the bore well, thereby recharging the soil, underground soil, and the underground water level goes up. Next slide, please. And these are the pictures of the open pit where farmers don't have a well or a bore well. So then we encourage them to go for open pits in their own farms and store water and see that the water is. And here we are thankful to all the stakeholders who have, sort of wished us with their, money and wishes. So thank you so much, and hope that you guys will continue to. And now you can go through some pictures of the farms that we have done. I need to add here, most of the participating farmers who won the prize were from the C projects. And so that's a great achievement for the C team. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Over to you, Harshal.
Thank you, Mr. Vyas. I'm sure that these projects will be turning point for many farmer friends, and I'll not be surprised if similar models are emulated in other geographies across the globe. Similar such model is underway for rape mustard in Rajasthan, jointly by C and Solidaridad. While we believe that this dedicated team is doing their best, C has been progressive by conducting an independent third-party audit of the performance of the model castor farms. To hear what an independent third-party report says, we would like to call upon Mr. Abhijit Mohanty, who is a consultant with Mart Global Management Solutions LLP, Noida. Welcome, Mr. Abhijit, and over to you, sir.
Yeah, good evening to all. Hope I am audible.
Yes, Mr. Mohanty, you are audible.
Yeah. Could you please run the presentation, please?
Yes.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to the presentation on the independent evaluation of C model castor farms for the year 2021. Next, please. Next slide, please. So the primary objective was basically to study and assess the current status of the model farms and determine if the intervention has helped the farmer increase the productivity of castor. Secondly, we developed case studies which highlight the success or failure, as the case may be, of the intervention, so as to communicate better. Next, please. Now, there were 363 model farms. Originally, 500 were planned, but due to heavy rains, around 137 were washed away. And perhaps in Sirohi, the impact of the rain was lesser, as around 60% of the participants told the rain was optimum. However, in Gujarat, more than 2/3 of the farmers, they had this opinion that due to this heavy rains, they suffered some production losses. So we conducted this study in 4 districts, which comprised 5 talukas, 16 villages, and 40 model farms. In order to compare the change in productivity, the difference in productivity, so we also took up 10 control farms. Next, please. Now come to the analysis and findings part. So as per our findings, the average productivity of the model farms this year is 4,422 kg per hectare, as against 3,210 kg per hectare for the control farms. So that shows an increase of 37% for the model farms. Next, please. Now, the farmers whom we interviewed, 40 farmers, 17 of them, they had grown castor on their alternative farms without taking support from seed. So we measured the productivity of the model farms against their productivity from the non-model farms. So when we compared that, we found that in the model farms, where the productivity is 4,620 per hectare for those farmers. For the same farmer, for those 17 farms, the average productivity in the non-model farm is 3,774 kg per hectare. So that shows increase of 22.65%. So if we combine the my last slide, that is the model farm versus control farm productivity, and this one, model farm versus non-model farm of the same farm productivity. In both cases, we find that there has been increase. Now coming to the number of pickings. In model farms, it was found that the number of pickings, average number of pickings, 9.1, whereas in control group, it is around 7.2. So the model farms pickings is 26.38% higher than the control farms. Now again, coming to the number of pickings for the model farms versus the non-model farms of the same farmer, as you can see, the average number of pickings was 9.29 for the model farms, as against 8.17 of the non-model farms. So that shows an increase of 13.7% for the model farms. So now here we will be speaking more on qualitative terms on our observations. My observation on spacing was that 75% of the farmers, they adhered to spacing of 5 feet by 3 feet. Now somewhere they have been asked to keep a 5 feet into 4 feet spacing. Somewhere it is 6 feet into 4 feet. So minimum 5 feet is what is good for branching out. So 5 feet by 3 feet, 75% of the farmers have adhered to it, and 57.5% we found that they adhered to this minimum recommended spacing of at least 4 feet either way. Now, one observation here is that because of these heavy rains during August, September, when most of the plants were washed away, now the farmers, they became a bit skeptical, like what would happen to the production. So many of them, they actually in fact, some of them, they once the plants got washed away and they showed new seeds. So they reduced the spacing with the hope that more number of plants will lead to more productivity. So that was one of the observations. Some farmers did it. And also, with respect to the seeds that were first provided, so once they got those plants got washed away, or the seeds got washed away, so these farmers, they also got other seeds from the market, which were like GCH7 seeds, or they were or of comparable quality. So that is one of the observations which I also put in my other slide. Next, please. Now, on physical inputs this year as compared to the last 4 years, here I want to say something regarding my observation. I want to explain it. Like Last year, model farmers were given GCH7 seeds. This year also, I understand GCH7 seeds are given in the districts of Saurashtra. However, that was not covered this time. We have covered Kutch, Patan, Banaskantha, and Sirohi this time. So here in these 4 districts, this latest GCH8 seeds have been given to the farmers, which, yes, they have higher oil quantity and they are heavier than the GCH7 seeds. But perhaps the farmers, most of the farmers, they do not have this understanding of this fact. What happens is that when a farmer for this year, he wants to take up a model farm, it is one of the reasons is maybe that he has because seen the last year's farm of his maybe neighbor or of some other farmer in his area. Now GCH, in the next slide I will be showing you the GCH7 clusters, they are very, very dense. The cluster sizes are bigger, as you can see here in the left hand side picture. This is one farm only, one farm, 2 varieties. In one farm, you can see the GCH7 clusters. They are longer, more number of pods, and they are denser. Whereas just adjacent to it is the GCH81 cluster, which is definitely, it has higher oil content and it is heavier. But visually, once the farmer sees that it has lesser number of pods, he gets a bit discouraged. So 40% of the farmers in our during the survey, they said that yeah, GCH8 this number of the clusters, the cluster sizes are small, the number of pods are smaller. However, they also admitted the fact that it has more number of branches because of our spacing techniques, which CS coordinators have been teaching them all the way. So it has more number of clusters. So more number of clusters definitely leads to better production. That gets balanced out. So here I'm just showing some pictures. The above pictures on the right hand side there of the GCH8 seeds and below the GCH7 seeds. So at the perception level, definitely the farmer is a bit discouraged. But once all the pickings are done and once the things are weighed, and I definitely hope that the things will be much better. The productivity will be much better. Next, please. So regarding the technical support provided by CS coordinators, so when we asked them to recall what has been, they were never prompted like, did they tell you to do this, did they tell you to do that? No. So they were not prompted. They were asked to recall whatever was being taught to them right from the sowing stage, land preparation stage up to the harvesting. So this is what we received 121 responses from 35 model farmers. So almost all of the essential aspects of the technical support is covered here. Spacing between plants and application of fertilizers, these were the recalls by most of the beneficiaries who chose to answer. And apart from that, phone support, how to dig pits and sow seeds, the frequency of irrigation, soil treatment. So all these are the factors which came up when we asked them. So this is the analysis for the technical support provided by C, and all the beneficiaries, they really held the project primarily because of the technical support being provided by C coordinators. Next, please. So on a rating scale of 1 to 5, we asked them where 5 denotes the highest satisfaction level. We asked the beneficiaries to rate their satisfaction level with the model Castor Farm project. So 17.5% of the farmers said that they are very satisfied, whereas 67.5% they said that they are satisfied. So I believe a score of 4 or above, it's definitely a very good parameter of the success of the project. However, there were a few of them, two farmers who rated as neutral. So, and 2 of them they rated as poor. Those of them who rated poor primarily was because for the quality of seeds, because of GCH8, the perception that they had that it gives lower size of clusters. But however, for the larger part of the beneficiaries, they were quite happy, and primarily because of the technical support provided by C and seed quality. Yes, they are they are a bit distressed, but I think that is not a very big issue with them, because some farmers, they also know that the seeds are heavier and have more oil content. So they're just waiting for all the pickings to be completed. So next slide, please. So a few recommendations. We believe the yield rate of GCH8 in terms of oil content weight, it has been done in fact. So I think some steps may be taken just to inform the beneficiaries, the farmers, before the sowing process, so that to arrest any such apprehension which may come in future. there may be field test results of the seed varieties, and definitely for GCH8 seed field test results must have been there. As Mr. Harish has said that it has more oil content, and also some beneficiaries are also telling us. So that results, if they are shared in a more better way, maybe these apprehensions which these farmers are getting, then they may not have that negativity. So, and we can ensure timely pickings by farmers to obtain optimum productivity and to maintain better soil health and fertility. Farmers may be advised to crop rotation and organic inputs like farmer manure and castor cakes. This year, de-oiled castor cakes were provided to the farmers as a matter of fact. And for the better productivity of castor and with the purpose of dissemination of best cultivation practices, this model castor farm may be continued in existing areas and may be expanded to your districts too. Thank you so much for patiently listening. I hope I have completed within time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohanty, for this third party and independent report. Moving on to the next speaker, I would like to invite Mr. Santosh Jawar, Vice President Consulting, Indian Agribusiness Systems Limited, to make a presentation on the Indian Castor Crop Survey 2021. Yeah, is that visible now?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jawar.
Good evening again. I thank you, SCA, for giving us an opportunity in the successive fourth year to give a castor seed crop survey and give an estimate on castor seed production for the year 2021. Thank you. Next, please. Here we saw the monsoon rainfall in castor growing regions. You can see here that the rainfalls in 2020 is much higher than the normal rainfall. It was also higher in 2019, but again 2020 also we have a successive good rainfall in all the castor growing regions like Gujarat, Saurashtra and Kutch, West Rajasthan, Telangana and Rayalaseema. Next, please. Since the time is constrained, so we I just try to present the numbers only. So here is the production estimates for AP Telangana. In AP Telangana, as per state government estimates, the area has decreased by 34%. Last year it was 58,000 hectare, and this year's government has estimated to be 38,000 hectare. And the average productivity is estimated to be 590 kg per hectare versus last year 593 kg per hectare. And accordingly, the production estimates for 2021 is estimated to be 22,000 tons versus last year's production estimate of 34,000 tons. Next, please. Next, please. Here's the estimate for the next second major states is Rajasthan. As per Rajasthan state government estimates, this year's area has decreased to 1,25,000 hectare versus last year's estimate of 1,54,000 hectare. And as per our survey of farmers interaction during first and second 2 rounds of survey, we are expecting a yield of around 1876 kg per hectare versus last year's around 1600 kg per hectare. This year, main reasons for higher yield estimation is good rainfall and favorable weather and adequate water for availability for irrigation. But the so production estimates for the Rajasthan estimated to be 2,35,000 tons versus last year's 2,45,000 tons. So marginal decrease just because of area decrease but higher yield. So area has decreased by 18.5%, but the yield is estimated to be increased by 17.5%. So production is expected to be more or less same as last year. Next, please. Here is the estimate for our Gujarat. In Gujarat, as per state government, area is expected to be 6,38,000 hectare versus last year's estimates of 7,40,000 hectare. And major reasons for decline in area are the lower price realization last year and crop rotation and shifting to other remunerative crops. But as per farmers' expectations, depending upon the crop conditions, present crop conditions, the yield is expected to be higher this year as against last year. In our survey, we found a yield is expected to be 2,550 kg per hectare against last year's yield of 2,240 kg per hectare. And the major reasons again for higher yields are the favorable weather and adoption of quality seeds and adequate water availability for irrigation. So accordingly, the production estimate for the Gujarat state is expected to be 16.29 lakh ton versus last year's estimates of 16.5 lakh ton. So higher yield estimates in current year is likely to keep the production same as last year. Next, please. Here is the estimate of total India. For all India, castor acreage is kept at 8,26,000 versus against last year's acreage estimate of 9,73,000. And average yield for the, I would say the weighted average yield for the all India is coming to be this year 2,300 kg per hectare versus last year 2,006 kg per hectare. So the estimate for the country is expected to be around 19 lakh ton versus last year's of 19.52 lakh ton. So this is based on our next please. This is based on our 2 rounds of field survey and remote data analysis, and there will be a third round during March and April for further yield revaluation in order to finalize the production numbers. And in the coming months, the temperature, I think the rising temperature could be a cause of factor for which could impact the last picking and the availability of water for irrigation, and the market price is also going to impact the last picking, and accordingly the final yield in the coming months. So after March-April survey, we will be coming in revised production numbers again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jawar, for the data-packed presentation. For the panel discussion on castor oil price outlook 2021, I would like to invite Mr. Atul Chaturvedi, President SEA, to invite our expert panel members and to moderate the panel discussion. Over to you, Mr. Chaturvedi. Mr. Chaturvedi, can you please unmute yourself, sir?
Yes, I have now unmuted myself because you had muted me.
Thank you. That happened.
Thank you for unmuting me.
My apologies, sir.
That is why I was doing this. Unmute me. Allow my voice to. Thank you very much. I'm sure we have paucity of time, but I hope we still have about 30 odd minutes. Okay, your boss. What do you say?
Let's go on. Yes.
Fair enough. Friends, it's my pleasure to moderate this interesting session on price outlook. We have a very knowledgeable panel from various parts of the world, representing both the consumers as well as the producers. So you have a balanced view of how the demand and supply and the price outlook should pan out as we go forward. We have among us Mr. Ravi Shahid from USA Acme Hardesty. We have Dennis Ginter from COFCO, Netherlands. We have Abhay Udeshi ji from China. Vivian is also there, the beautiful lady. Vivian also from Hengshui, Jinghua. And we have Achapawal from Thailand. We will definitely be missing our very old friend, philosopher and guide, Mr. Trevor. He was always a live wire in all these price outlook discussions. I'm sure you all have by now absorbed the crop numbers which have just been presented. I'm sure they are very much at variance with whatever we would have been possibly anticipating. Lower acreage, but a much higher yield. So my first question would be to both the Indian participants, Abhay ji and Deepak. Abhay ji first, do you agree with the crop numbers? And also, do you agree with the yield improvements which have been reflected in the surveys? What is your take on that?
In my opinion, I think the rider has already been placed by Santosh Jawar when he has made this presentation, that it looks that, you know, in the third or the fourth round of survey, there could be some changes. So he's already put a rider. And from my personal side, I think it is whatever he has presented today in the crop numbers, it looks a little bit on the optimistic side, maybe about 10% more. So I believe the crop could be a little bit on the lower side. Yields, yes, we have been seeing better yields, you know, in our model farms, as we all saw. But at the same time, there have been some, you know, damages also when there were heavy rain. So, you know, 0 and 5,000, you know, it comes down back to 2,500. So, you know, in that perspective, I think overall, I would say that the crop that has been presented by AgriWatch looks a little bit optimistic.
Thank you, Abhay ji. What is your take on this, Deepak ji?
Atul ji, I also have the same view as Abhay ji. I don't agree with the numbers. I mean, we have lower acreage, but I don't think we may have so much higher yield because we had good winters, but the time was very short. I mean, we hardly had 20-25 days of good winter. And so overall, I think we may be short of roughly around 250,000 tons of what AgriWatch has shown the numbers.
So what you're saying is closer to about 1,700 or 1.7 million tons, roughly.
Even that would be higher. I think we would be approx around 1.55 or 1.6.
I would like to add here, Atul ji, with your permission. You know, this time the sowing acreage has increased. Mainly, a lot of it has increased in the month of October. So we are already seeing a delay in the crop pattern, the crop sowing pattern, and thus, you know, the harvest time also. So we will see some delay in the first arrivals or the first harvest. So, you know, the time between, you know, the first harvest and the last harvest, which is typically between February and April, we might have that period shortened, which means that the pickings at the end of the harvest time could be lower than what one is expecting. And thereby, you know, the yields, we are a little bit showing on the optimistic side. So that's, I just wanted to add that.
Fair enough, fair enough. Let me ask from our Indo-Chinese, Vivian, you've been following the Indian crop quite closely. What in your view is the Indian scenario? Do you agree with the crop number?
That I have no idea.
Right. Okay, then we all belong to the same category. We are all guesstimates.
Yeah, this number was a little bit shock, actually.
Okay. No, but let me share with you, Abhay ji and Deepak ji. My take is that we have been wrong as far as the yield estimates are practically in the last 7-8 years, or maybe more. We have always been estimating the yields at a much lower level. Now I personally feel that AgriWatch is doing a reasonably good job in coming up with numbers which may actually be closer to the reality. And that is one reason why, in spite of whatever we hear that the crop is small or whatever, castor availability has never been affected ever in the last 3, 4, 5 years. And the classic case was the year 2011, when we all estimated a lower crop and the crop actually surprised us big time. I wouldn't be too surprised if this year also the crop surprises us. Any more comments on this from our international friends? Ravi, you must be following Indian crop numbers also quite closely. What's your take on that?
Yes, sure, Atulji, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to SCA, and I have the honor of being a panel here, and thanks to my company, Acme Artistry as well. So my take is, I'll take it in a different spin. I agree with Atulji. The crop has never been short. And plus, I can also say with my limited experience in this industry that none of us, whatever expertise we carry in this room, have never been correct on the crop size ever. And we will never be correct as well. I can say that with surety. Another thing which I would like to point out is that I think the number that has been shown this year probably is reflective of some reality that exists on the ground. And I believe the last year's numbers were toned down. So that's why it seems like I agree with Abhay and Deepak that the number seems, they seem it is lower. I think it is the right number. The last year's number was shown as lower.
Thank you. Thank you. Dennis, you've been a follower of the Indian scene for a very long time. Your take on this?
Okay, so basically, my first reaction when adding up the volumes during the survey, the different steps of the survey, surprised me a little bit on the number with a total of 1.9 million tons this year. Having said that, I fully concur with your view, Atulji, that we have heavily underestimated the yields during the past years. And this is the reason why, despite the fears in different occasions to have a low crop and therefore some supply demand tensions, we have never felt them so far. So so I'm not that surprised, to be honest, at the end of the day. And I would tend to believe that the numbers provided by this institute is probably fairly correct today. The thing is, what I'm now, if you add up the current crop plus the carry, which could be expected to be between 5 lakhs and 6 lakhs tons of seeds, we would be coming to a very high number, which would be 2.4 to 2.5 million tons of seeds for 2021, which is quite a substantial number. I think probably a record crop if we look back. So a little bit surprised. On the other hand, not that much because again of the yields. And this total number of 2.4 to 2.5, if it's accurate, could actually turn even higher because the yields last year were probably also underestimated as well. So, all in all, what the bottom line is that we have an oversupply for 2021, which is very decent, no worries at all in terms of supply demand, at least on paper. Of course, there are some other factors we will discuss further in the next questions with regards to the farmers' behavior and everything. That's my take.
Pawal, you would like to add anything onto this?
Yes, hi. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. So I'd like to give this opportunity to thank you, everyone, for giving me this chance. So in my view, I think I was personally actually surprised by the number. It was more than I expected. I think the number could have been lower because talking to the market and all, it should have been 10-ish% lower than last year. But considering the number, it's quite high. But actually, if we look at the whole bigger picture, I think that last year's number is quite high, and the carryover must have been high as well because, let's say, demand is around 1.6, 1.7. So last year's crop plus the carryover plus this year's demand, this year's supply will be very large. So I think to look more ahead, I think the supply will be quite a lot. And considering that farmers might not plant as much because I think prices have not been as interesting as the other crops. So I think at the end it could be that prices could actually move a lot lower because of the demand, because of a lot of supply and the carryover.
Fair enough, fair enough. So your idea is basically that the crop number could actually be lower, and question marks on the crop. Now, Dennis actually raised an interesting point on the carry out. Now, my next question is again to the Indian participants. Abhay, what in your opinion is the carry out as of 1st of January 2021? Dennis feels it's closer to 500,000 tons, and I would much rather like to listen to your view on that.
In my opinion, we've seen a big demand or a surge in the demand in 2020. And looking at what we saw as Shailesh's presentation also, I would put the number somewhere between 350, max 400,000 tons of carry out. So as of 1st of January.
Actually, Shailesh gave the number as 330,000 tons.
Yeah, so I would say between 350 and 400 maximum.
Your take, Deepak?
Atulji, in my opinion, as on 1st Jan 2021, we have roughly around 450,000 tons of carry.
Anyone else has a view on this? Ravi, your take? What's your grave point?
Based upon the last year's crop numbers and the overall and the demand side, and kind of agree with the somewhere in the middle. I would say 400,000 or 4 lakh plus minus 10%.
Anyone else wants to comment on this?
Yeah, if I have a chance, I think
go ahead.
The carryover this year would be quite high. Like I said in the previous question, I think the total crop has been quite high, around 1.92 million, and demand is usually around 1.6, 1.7 million. So I would say that carryover is more like 400, 500,000 tons, and this is not including the other carryover from other previous years. So I would be more optimistic in the number.
So the general consensus seems to be that the carry out could be closer to about 400,000 tons, give or take 30, 40,000 here or there. That's about it, right? Oh, okay, now I come to the next topic, which is the COVID effect. We have been witnessing demand destruction across sectors, whether it is sugar sector, which I represent, whether it's the edible oil sector, again, which I'm closely associated with. We see demand destruction across the board, but commodity values going up. Commodity values right across the world are going through the roof. What effect will the COVID have on demand as far as castor goes? Because last year castor has been largely insulated, and you already have heard that we exported close to about 650,000 tons of castor oil compared to about 545 in the previous year. So what, in your view, is the scenario going to pan out in this year? Ravi, I'll start with you. Your view on this, Ravi.
Thank you, Atulji. It's a interesting question. The reason I say that is interesting because you started off with saying COVID and then demand destruction, but at the same time, it's contradictory when we are talking about the highest ever export, year for the last, I don't know how many years. I probably in the history, it's been one of the highest from an export number perspective. So the oil has gone somewhere, and obviously we know that China has been the front runner after the initial slowdowns of first and second quarter, where they bought really heavy in the second half of the year. And if you look at the numbers from other geographies as well, Europe as well as US, they're pretty much aligned with the previous year's numbers, plus minus 10, 15,000 tons. which in the overall scheme of things is not such a great, great impact, even considering the lockdowns and the COVID-related, further down the stream industry impacts that consume castor oil. And now we are looking at 2021, where at least there is, I would certainly say there is a little bit more optimism in the world with vaccinations rolling out and the industry starting to come up, and the governments, I think, all over the globe, at least committed to not having those extensive lockdowns to the effect that happened in the first half of last year. So all in all, from all perspectives, I pretty much see demand not really improving, but at least at similar levels between 19 and 20. And I don't see demand really dipping, but I also don't see it kind of increasing, drastically, because there's still something in the pipeline that was taken in 2020. So I think demand will be similar.
Vivian, you've been quiet for far too long. What is your take on the demand as far as China is concerned?
At some part, I agreed with Mr. Ravi, what he said. And I want to add some point that for the demand of 2020, we have to see not about 2020.
Can you speak closer to the mic?
Yes, I will hold mic.
Yeah.
Okay. Some part I agree with Mr. Ravi, what he said, but also I would like to add some point. Because after COVID controlled by China government is the most big example that after recovered epidemic in China led to big demand for all the commodities. Because people most times stay in the home, consumption is increased, not only inventory. Then second thing, the castor oil big numbers come in 2020 is that we have to see that in the last 2-3 years. And I saw that Mr. Shailesh's presentation have to show that 2017 and then 2019. If you reverse this presentation, that part you can see now is coming normal levels. Because 2019 was export less, inventory all the world is lower. And now it's coming I think average coming in 2020 will be average normal. And also about the economy recovered after epidemic in the global situation, I believe in 2021 will be continuously stronger demand and consumptions will be support the market.
Very good. And China seems to be one country which is beating everything, and the GDP is improving much better than the rest of the world.
Yes.
So I hope Chinese demand will continue to be as robust as it was this year.
Yes.
What's your take on this, Abhay from Thailand?
Yes. So for me, I think castor oil overall is a technical oil. So basically, it's used in factories and in industrial uses. So you can't stop all of a sudden demand for it. But I think in the past and last year, I think the stop in demand was actually caused by the supply chain side, the logistics side. Like when India shut down during March, that caused a huge problem in supplying the castor oil to the rest of the world. But after that, you can see if you look at I think export numbers, it went up a lot in the month after everything started moving in again. So I think it's more of inventory adjustments like that. So demand that used to be there had to move, behind and lag behind. So, but I mean, on my side, I think for the COVID situation, I think COVID would have more impact on more, let's say, services and the hospitality sectors rather than manufacturing. In Thailand, we've seen manufacturing continue throughout the whole year, except for the supply chain bump around there. So it's been consistent, and I think it's inventory adjustments and all that.
I must say, like father, like son. Your assessment exactly like what Tevon would have assessed. Dennis, any take on this?
Yes, actually, to determine the 2021 demand, I would say that we have to look back at 2020. There are a few things I would like to mention on China particularly. I think that that what we need to take into account as well is that I think China has been importing big volumes in 2020 for a few reasons. First of all, because the inventories were a bit on the low side, because the crop, the junction between 2019 and 2020 was a bit tight. So the stocks were very low everywhere in the world. So China imported big volumes in 2020. That's the first thing. Second thing, there were tensions between India and China in some areas, which were creating some worries that maybe China would not be able to import any oil from India, some embargoes or that kind of things. And last but not least, since the end of 2020, we have been seeing tremendous disturbance in the container freight market. So also this is one of the factors which China anticipated and increased the imports during the end of 2020 of castor oil, because they were seeing some big tensions coming up on the container freight market, and to avoid to be in trouble during Q1 2021, they increased the imports from India during last quarter, which are usually not that high as they were last year. So all in all, my view is that China has been is sitting on quite some substantial stocks of oil, castor oil, and with the container freight market, which is a big nightmare at the moment for Q1 for this at this moment, they are basically not in trouble to postpone some shipments until the end of February and maybe onwards, because they have good amounts of oil. So my view is for 2021 that China will not import as much as what they have been doing last year, because it was a restocking situation and there were some tensions, diplomatic and everything. On the other hand, Europe has been facing a bit of troubles last year, like US. Construction and automotive sectors have been hit a little bit, so the consumption imports into Europe were a bit lower than previous years. So all in all, I would expect that the demand for 2021 should be probably about the same as they were last year, but not more than that. Another thing I would like to not correct, but just to mention is that Shailesh was mentioning a yearly growth of 7 to 8% every year. I would not agree on those numbers. I would say that the annual growth on castor oil demand as a whole should be between 2 to 3%. And the reason why we have seen high numbers, if we look at exports numbers from India, is because the Chinese production of castor seeds have tremendously reduced during the last decade. So this is why also the consumption looks higher in China, but it's actually a move from lower production to more imports from India. So that's my take.
Thank you. But let me add to whatever you've said. I think the Chinese probably read all the commodity markets the best. If you look at the Chinese buying in the last 4 to 5 months, they have bought any and everything under the sun. I think they read the markets very well. No wonder you have a Vivian here who understands the Indian castor market very well. So I think the same goes with castor as well. Now coming to a similar kind of a question, and with weak dollar is weak, and with amount of stimuluses being pumped in now, US is talking in terms of almost something like $2 trillion stimulus, and China also pumping in money in the country, India also pumping in. Weak dollar and massive influence, what impact do you all think it will have on the prices as far as castor oil is concerned? Abhay, your take on this.
I would first answer your previous question because I thought I wanted to put some inputs, and I said it in my opening remarks as well. You know, when castor is at the lowest, on the lower end of the price band with all vegetable oils, you know, you will find increase in consumption. Forget the export market where we are all expecting normal, demand as of 2020. but the Indian domestic consumption can grow rapidly because castor, compared to all other vegetable oils, is at the very low end, and the consumption can really change over, as we saw in the early 70s and 80s when Mr. B.R. Shah was at Hindustan Lever. They consumed 50,000 tons of oil. So, nothing could be surprising than Indian domestic consumption if the prices where we are today, and if people are expecting lower prices. I think India could be a little bit of a game changer in the consumption pattern. So that's one of the points that I would like to share with everyone. And on the dollar weakness, I think currency always gets adjusted in the price, being a commodity. So it's not really very important, but it's important from a farmer's perspective. So if the dollar gets weaker and weaker, I think the price in dollar terms is going to increase, because no matter what happens, the Indian farmer, we have seen this in 2020, maybe partly because of the COVID situation where the farmers did not bring in the seeds in the beginning of the year. But even when the economy started opening up, or after the COVID, we saw arrivals, limited, because it's all in the hands of the farmers. We don't have stockists that have, entered into the market. And thereby, I think farmers today, in today's scenario where we see castor being at the lower end, farmer will bring in more of what is at a higher price. It's common sense that farmer will bring in rapeseed against castor. So they would keep holding back castor. So I would not be surprised if the arrivals really don't pick up because of only the pricing. So, that's my take on that.
What's your take, Deepak Bhai?
Atulji, this dollar weakness, what we are seeing is across all the currency. If you see against euro, Asian currency. So I think if rupee is going to appreciate, then all other importing countries like China or Europe or Asian countries, even their currency is going to appreciate. So for importing nation, I think it will be benefit. So overall, it will get adjusted. So there won't be any pressure on the price point.
No, but weaker dollar would also mean bigger
higher
demand
prices.
from the consuming countries. They can possibly buy more.
More,
That
yeah.
could actually reflect on the prices as well. So the
Yes.
prices in real terms may not come down because of the demand pumping up. Any other comment on this from our friends here? Dennis, yep.
Yes, I would say, and what our good friend Stavon was always saying, castor is inelastic to the price. So whatever happens with the currencies or with the price of castor beans, the consumption patterns should remain stable and increase on 2-3% on a yearly basis. And what Deepak was saying is correct. I mean, the dollar is not only losing ground against the rupee, but also against other currencies. So basically, the euro is also stronger against the dollar, which means cheaper imports as well. Even though the price of the castor in dollars in India will also be on the higher side. So all in all, it will be compensated. But again, I don't think that the currencies will have a big effect. I don't think that because of the currency weakness, the dollar weakness, that we will see higher imports of oil. And also,
yeah,
yes.
Good.
And also, I think that what you said, Atul, is very true. That it's a bit off topic, but I think it's important to mention that what you said is fully right. I mean, the Chinese have been buying every single kilo what they could find during the last 5 months, which is the reason why one of the reasons why the price of other veg oils have been rallying so much, even though there has been some kind of correction coming up in January. But I think that if they are sitting on big stocks and they decide not to buy anything, that markets prices for other veg oil will drop significantly as well in the coming months. But this is again off topic now.
Ravi, your comment?
Yeah, I think not repeating what everybody here said. Another thing to put in perspective is we're talking about a weakening of the dollar only in a very short-term perspective. because if you look at that, dollar is still at a very historical high, in the 70s, and it has never been that high if you go back 12 or 15 months ago. So from that perspective, I think it's still at a very, very high values, from if you go from a historic perspective. And secondly, like Danny said, the rest of the world, if the other currencies are also, appreciating against the dollar, so it doesn't really affect the global side of the equation in terms of the purchasing power or the imports from a value point of view. But yes, certainly for the US, US consumers will have to pay a little higher. But at the same time, US being about, not a big percentage of the overall demand for castor. And I think we have seen historically as well, US pretty much, stays stable in spite of all the upswings and the downswings on pricing factor from a volume level perspective. And I don't foresee that change happening, even with a little depreciation in the dollar.
My next question would be to the Indian friends as well as to all the friends who are here. Abhay, what do you think is going to be India's export number for the next year? This year was 650,000 tons, and we are talking of January to December period, not the oil year, December.
That's correct.
Calendar
The castor year.
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah, we changed it a few years back. Yeah.
Right. So I think looks flat to me with whatever we are seeing. As far as exports is concerned, overall consumption, as I've said, could be a little bit on the higher side with the Indian scenario coming in a little more serious play. But on the exports side, I think that China could be a little lower, whereas Europe, US could be a little bit on the higher side. Especially you have to keep in mind the factor that's the crude oil factor. So crude oil has been increasing slowly and steadily, and castor, as I think a lot of people at this forum also mentioned, including Mr. Dalwai, that we are looking at renewable resources. We heard some European friends here talk about the green chemistry part, and so that way I think it may not be all of a sudden in this year, but going forward, even you're building some blocks for the future, and I would be happy to see that by 2025, even I would not be surprised if we have double of what we are having today. So that's my take for 2021, flat or as far as exports are concerned.
Deepak, what's your take on this?
Atulji, I think for current year, the export numbers would be lower. I think 5 to 7% lower than what we saw last year. Mainly because I think China is sitting on at least 1.5 to 2 months of inventory due to too much of stocking. Rest all destination like Europe, US, and other destination, even in all are running on the low inventory. So I'm hoping that the export numbers to other destination except China would be plus 5 to 6% more. But China would be roughly around 8 to 10% lower than the last year.
Vivian, you need to come. What do you think is the Chinese imports going to be in 2021?
I had a presentation that we expected.
Again, put the mic closer.
In my presentation, I already mentioned that we expected 2.7 lakhs in 2021. But this crop number coming in the day was a little bit shocked. So that also basically this crop number will be present 1.9 millions. That also it will be in fact the price level. If the price level is still similar like last year, I believe that India export number should be same as 2020. Also maybe can be increased a little bit higher compared to 2020.
Thank you. Paul, what's your take on Thai imports as well as Japanese imports? Because you look at the Japanese market as well.
Right. Okay. So I think overall for demand, as I've said, I think demand is fairly constant. It doesn't grow that much. But in the past few months leading up to end of last year and also the first 2 months of this year, I think it's been the adjustments in inventory. So the sluggish demand that we saw after the pandemic was pent up demand, which, people, because of the higher freight costs and the container shortages and all that. So people, because of this pent up demand that they couldn't buy earlier. So they bought a lot towards the end of the year. And also I think beginning of this year, they also anticipate that freight costs could go higher or containers can be hard to buy. So a lot of people are buying ahead and keeping the stock for that. So that's one reason. It's more like inventory moving around. But besides that, I think there's also another issue, which is called the reflation trade. Now, this is more like economics where the central banks have been pumping money into the system. So there's been lots of money in the system and then they have to buy assets. So what happens with this would stoke inflationary pressures eventually. And so one way to hedge this would be to buy commodities. So I think one reason why there was a run in commodities is because it's a natural hedge against inflation. So that's why it could be that they've been buying this instead. Now, just another take is that over the long run, I think, demand eventually grows. So there'll always be a shift from petroleum-based products into more, plant-based products from Castor. So that's more for the longer run.
Yeah. Ginter, Dennis, what do you think is going to be the European scenario?
Okay, two things I wanted to mention. First one, I was just mentioning a few minutes ago that Castor was inelastic. This is true in most cases, but not in India. Indeed, in India, we know that in the soaps and in the paint industry, there is a lot of changing in formula between soya and castor. Looking at the fact that castor today is one of the cheapest commodities in India, I fully agree with Abhay that the domestic consumption should get a boost until the moment that the price of other veg oils come down tremendously. And then this might be adjusted also on the domestic side in India. Second thing I wanted to discuss or to mention is that I think also one of the parameters which will influence the total exports from India in 2021 will be basically what's going to happen with the planting in July, September 2021. We know that the prices of castor at the moment are at the lowest, which is not good for the farmers. They have better options. They are cashing more money on groundnut, on mustard, on cotton at the moment than on castor. But things may change in the coming months because again, I think that the price of other veg oils might come down quite substantially in the coming months. If that would be the case, it would maybe change the mindset of the farmers during the period July, September. And based on that and the monsoon development, of course, we will have a better picture probably end of September on what the crop will be for the planting will be for 2022 crop. And based on this, there might be, if the price of castor have not increased during that period, then it will be a bad scenario for the castor for 2026, 2022. And in that case, we might see a boost of imports to bridge or to anticipate maybe some price increase on castor for 2022. So all in all, I expect the demand should remain stable, but the period, let's say September, December, will be an important one to see the movements, major movements in terms of exports from India.
Now I'll come to the last part of my questioning, and that is on the price outlook. So what will be the scenario as per you in dollar terms for the first half of 21 and for the second half of 21? What is your take? Deepak, I'll start with you. Give a range in your opinion. First half and second half.
Yes. Atulji, due to the low inventory in India, I mean, with the stockist, with the crushers, all the plants in India, everyone is running on the low inventory, even the Europe, US. So, and the numbers what AgriWatch gave has been surprising, or else the trade estimate was roughly around 1.5 million. So, everyone was expecting that around 4,200 levels NCDX. Everyone was thinking that it was a good buy compared if you see prices compared to other edible oils. But now with this big numbers and China already with the big inventory, and China has always been the trend follower of the market. Now I don't see any big demand from the China, but on each level, I think the Indians and Indian stockists and the Europe will keep buying. So keeping all that, I think 4,000 on the NCDX level would be the bottom. And but again, being the big numbers and bigger crop, bigger carryover from the last year, I think upper range should be approx 4,700 on the NCDX level.
And FSG, FOB India, currently, which is around 1,300, what would you think? It's going to be first half and second half?
First half, I think we may see 1,250 on the lower side. And in the second half, I think we may see 1,400 levels.
So range is 1,250 to 1,400.
Yeah.
What's your take, Paul?
Yeah, okay. So for me, I think, so demand is fairly constant. So the thing that would move
No,
is
just give me the numbers.
Okay.
FOB number, first half and second half, your range.
Okay, so just to lead to that. Oh, okay. So basically, prices will drop because when farmers, it's been in a tight range since the beginning of the year. So 1330, 1370, all that. So I think what would happen is that once the full season comes in March or April, then farmers no longer, because they have limited storage facility and storage costs, they would sell. So price should go down. And so I expect it to go down another $50 or $100 within March and April. So it should be, I don't know. But when you're saying June, that's when it's passing the arrival already. So it might be back to around this level again. And then moving towards the end of the year, since the new crop is slightly lower, so I think it should be a bit firmer towards the end of the year. But if crop prices, if castor prices is still very less than other prices, so I think farmers might not plant that. So when you see in October again, when the planting of castor, let's say, is dropped significantly, then price at the end of December might shoot up a lot. So maybe 15 under, something like that. Yeah.
Ravi, your take?
I mean, I would have loved with this question if Tawarn was here with us because I love his insights, especially on the pricing question. And just going by that, I mean, it's going by, we looked at the demand scenario, we looked at the supply scenario, and it seems like over the near future, when I say near future, over the next 2-3 months, of course, there will be pressure of the harvest and arrivals and everything kind of increasing as well. And demand is where it is. So based upon that, there will be some downward pressure. And that will obviously reflect with obviously now also assuming that the dollar will be on a similar level. So on a dollar level, it would be, I think the downside could be up to even 1,200, 1,225, depending upon if the pressure is large and what kind of arrival of bags comes in March and April. And another thing to consider is, which I think we haven't talked about enough, is what's the expectation of the farmer? Because we have seen over the last 5-6 months, the farmers have been pretty, I guess, resilient, as well as they have stuck to a floor, as you may say, in the Indian rupee value of about 850, 860 kind of numbers on the market yards. And I think that that needs to be looked at. what's the expectation of the farmer, and what levels is the level where they say, you know what, I'm not bringing any of my seeds into the market yards because this does not work for me. And I think that floor would be dictated, in terms of the dollar value, whether it's at 1250 or 1225 or even 1200. Now, going forward, of course, it depends upon the expectation of the sowing and how that kind of filters and also compares against the other oil seeds that it competes against, what the farmer is thinking at the time of sowing. You start to get that idea around June, July. And from that time period, I think the typical scenario would be a little bit upstick that will happen in anticipation as well as sentiment, as grows in the industry. So we see that upstick in that particular time frame anyway, reaching up to about maybe 1400 levels at the most. And then, of course, last quarter of the year is always dependent upon how much acreage has been planted. And that the third quarter would dictate the fourth quarter, whether the acreage is similar or lower. If it is lower, the sentiment will certainly drive it. It can take it even higher than the 1400 levels at that time.
Got it. Abhay, your take on this? First half and second half.
First half and second half. So first and foremost, dollar 72.50 is current benchmark. So based on 72.50, my take would be first half, there could be pressure. It would go down to 1250. Nothing below that. I think there will be a lot of resistance because, in the first half, between now and April, you will see more arrivals of other crops than castor, because castor, you have to understand, is a long shelf life versus rapeseed or mustard seed or groundnut. They are all short duration, not only the short duration crop, but short shelf life. So that would put pressure on the farmer to first sell the high commodity price, lower shelf life, and castor you can store for even a year. So based on that, I would not expect anything below 1250. So 1250 to me also looks like a bottom. And yes, between now and first half is 1250 to 1350, which is good level. And of course, if it is at the lower end, then the second half will have its own impact because farmers will not be happy at lower prices. And if the prices are at the higher end, 1350 level dollar price, then the farmers will be also encouraged to grow more. And if the prices at the lower end, you will see higher second half. If the prices are on the higher side in the first half, you will see a stable price, a very range bound 2021.
Your take on this, Vivian? Any comment?
Yes. Basically, I have to basically if the crop size around the 1.9 millions, I will believe the castor price will maintain between 1300 to 1500 CF China in coming day. But we do not rule out a short period the price time as lower below 1300. But if basically on 1.6 millions crop size in next half years, I don't know what's going on. And also depends our God Indian farmers how to bring this seed arrival during the different season. Because you back to 2020, you can see the farmers no hurry to bring the seed. And then the long period of arrivals during the year in 2020. Especially after 2020, some laws changes, farmer become free to sell. So they can decide themselves, we have to depend on them. So that means that these two factors also is in fact price, also of course that dollars also in fact, and the shipping charges is coming down in next few months to China is also in fact the price. So the last word I can say that China buying stronger that nobody can understand than Indian also incredible Indian wayward China for the buying. Everything is possible.
Hindi chini bye bye. No, I think the consensus generally is that on the lower side, 1250 FOB levels, and on the higher side, probably 1400 or thereabouts. Large crop, bigger carry out, demand from China relatively stable, maybe marginally lower in the current year. Europe again stable. Thailand, Japan, practically all the countries demand likely to remain stable. But the catch could be if the edible oil prices remain buoyant and very high, possibly the domestic consumption of castor oil in the country might actually go up. That is the elephant in the room. We'll have to seriously keep watching that. But overall, the consensus is that supply side may be all right. Exports may be closer to what it was last year, around 650 to 660,000 tons. That's all from our side. And thank you very much. And sorry for having kept you all waiting for such a long time. Thank you. Thank you very much from my side. Back to you, Mehtaji.
Thank you, Atulji.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chaturvedi. And all our panelist members. Thanks for this guiding panel discussion. I would now like to invite the brain behind this incredible global castor webinar. I request Dr. B.V. Mehta, the Executive Director of Solvent Extractors Association of India, to express his word of thanks. Over to you, Dr. Mehta.
Dear speakers and participants, we at SEA always endeavor to work proactively with the various stakeholders on the industry for the growth and development of the industry. We hope you found the Global Castor Conference meaningful and enriching. Due to current situation globally, we could not meet in person, but our efforts to continue the knowledge sharing remains firm. We hope that you all have enjoyed the webinar as much as we did hosting it. The proceeding of the webinar will be available on the SEA website by early next week, maybe on the Monday itself. In case if you want to refer the proceeding, please visit www.seaofindia.com. We shall also be requesting your feedback by email to make the webinar experience better. Please do share your feedback. We have already sent you the email for the feedback. I would like to thank all the speakers, panelists, and media associates for their kind attention and the support. And also Mr. Harshal Kamdar for anchoring today's event. Last but not least, ASEA would like to thank all participants and industry friends for their patient hearing. Once again, sorry for a technical snag which has delayed our webinar for about 1 hour. Good day and stay safe and healthy. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mehta.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone. Good day and stay safe, stay healthy. We will now play the video of our patrons. You may please have a look.
Adani Wilmar.
A multi-billion-dollar company, Adani Wilmar Limited is a joint venture between the Adani Group of India and Wilmar International of Singapore. What drives Adani Wilmar is its vision to be a globally admired leader in integrated agribusiness with a deep commitment to nation building. It aims to be known for its scale of ambition, speed of execution, and quality of operation. Honoring its promise to give India the best foods, Adani Wilmar Limited has a range of food products under the famous brands. It has also given India its #1 edible oil brand, Fortune. The commissioning of India's very first port-based refinery at Mundra, Gujarat, was the stepping stone in Adani Wilmar's success story. The availability of cutting-edge infrastructure and its proximity to consumer markets made it a good choice to bridge the logistical gap between plants. Today, the unit also houses India's largest oleochemical plants that produces glycerine and soap noodles for pharma, cosmetics and rubber industries.
Who know that one of India's largest food companies is always thinking big and doing better. I'm confident that Adani Wilmar is ready to take new challenges, is steadily bringing innovation in food products and growing to transform the food industry in India. Thank you, Adani Wilmar, for a healthy, growing India.
Castor. For most, a seed which grows into a castor plant. For us, a seed which grows into saplings of thoughts, to a plant of sustainability, to the branches of opportunity, to the fruits of innovation, to nurture an industry. The giant agro group has proved that when nourished with ideas, a castor seed can grow into a giant industry. An industry that can develop the needs of the future. An industry that can expand its arms to reach diverse sectors across the globe. This is India, the global market leader in production and supply of castor seed and castor oil. The NK Proteins Group of Company is a strong and emerging front-runner in the manufacturing and export of castor oil and its derivatives like hydrogenated castor oil, 12-hydroxystearic acid and ricinoleic acid. Our production plant is located at Kadi in Mehsana district of Gujarat state, which has the world's highest castor seed yield in kilograms per hectare. Our corporate headquarters is located in Ahmedabad, one of the country's most vibrant and important cities. With more than 2 decades of industry experience under our belt, we serve our customers around the world with high-quality products at competitive prices and prompt deliveries. Spread over an area of around 1 lakh square meters, our infrastructure boasts of 6 massive silos, 12 seed crushers for extraction of oil, oil decanters, vertical continuous solvent extraction plant, energy-efficient hydrogenous plant, and an in-house quality control department with most advanced equipments like GLC and Carl Fisher. And our vision is to be the most competitive, reliable and preferred supplier of the full basket of castor oil and its derivatives around the globe.
This is Hengshui Jinghua Chemical Company Limited of China. We are devoted to the research and development of the bio-based materials to provide the world with green, eco-friendly, high-performance materials. We're one of the most important consumers in the world. We convert nearly 100,000 metric tons of castor oil by advanced technology to the product which is widely used in all aspects of our life. Welcome to Hengshui Jinghua Chemical Company Limited.
Thank you, everyone. See you. Have a great day. Thank you very much.